The world ends quietly. Ash drifts down through the broken ribs of skyscrapers, soft and slow, like the universe forgot how to snow properly. The last distant explosions have already burned themselves out, leaving only a low electric hum in the air, a kind of cosmic tinnitus. And down the center of an empty street, through a city that used to have traffic and coffee and arguments and alarms, a small girl walks alone, dragging a stuffed toy by one limp arm. This is Marceline before the songs, before the bass, before the fangs. Her boots are too big, and every step crunches through a thin frost of broken glass, each shard flashing in the dead light like tiny, defeated stars. The air tastes wrong, metallic, sharp, like she is licking a battery every time she breathes. Think about that for a second. Childhood, but the flavor profile is rust and fallout. She listens to her own footsteps because there is nothing else to listen to. No cars, no voices, just the echo of her soles bouncing off empty malls with escalators frozen mid-climb, off highways that stretch out like veins in a body that has already given up. Her stuffed toy thumps along the asphalt, picking up ash, its stitched smile slowly turning grey. She talks to it sometimes, not because it talks back, because reality feels less fragile if someone hears you. Far behind her, there is a shadow, tall, shaky, trailing along the edges of ruined storefronts. He keeps his distance. He always keeps his distance. In his hands, not yet on his head, is a crown that glints with a power the world is not finished paying for. He watches her dig through convenience store aisles for canned soup, for blankets, for anything that still remembers being warm. He is a guardian. He is a disaster. He is both at once. And here is the thing. The crown is already winning. Time in this place does not feel abstract. It feels like weight. It pools in the corners of abandoned food courts, thick and stale, collecting around this one small girl who does not yet understand that she will outlast almost everything she can see. We're going to treat time here like another character, because it is already wrapping itself around Marceline's shoulders, settling in, making plans. You can almost see it. The way centuries are coiled up invisibly around her ankles, like leashes she hasn't grown into yet. Someday these ruins will be forests. Someday candy kingdoms will rise where office towers collapsed. Vampires will circle like sharks over the flooded remains of parking lots. Demons will negotiate custody over her soul and her snack preferences. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the apocalypse is just the pilot episode. But right now, it is just a girl, a toy and a man-shaped shadow with a crown in his hands. In this video, we're going to walk with her from this street to every era that follows, across 1,000 years of memory and music, slowly enough that you can close your eyes and drift while the timeline keeps moving. Because if Marceline has to stay awake through all of it, the least we can do is fall asleep to the story. Tonight, we start with the night the world ended, and the little girl who didn't. From little girl to vampire queen. What we're exploring tonight, imagine living long enough that the night the world ends is just your childhood origin story. Imagine that the apocalypse is not the finale, but the cold open. In this video, we're going to follow Marceline across that impossible span of time, from the little girl on a ruined street to the vampire queen of Ooo, and finally to the quieter, stranger peace she reaches in distant lands. Let's start by promising the path so your brain can relax into it. We'll move mostly in a straight timeline, like walking down a long hallway of memories, stopping at the doors that matter. Pre-war childhood with Elise, a human mother trying to raise a half-demon kid in a world that still believes in hospitals and canned soup. The night the Mushroom War hits, the wandering years with Simon, when he is still Simon Petrikov and not yet the Ice King. The brutal, methodical hunt of the 5 great vampires and the way each power she gains, flight, invisibility, shape-shifting, that soul-draining bite, comes with another name she has to remember forever. Think about that for a second. Every ability she has is also a gravestone. Here is the thing. Marceline is not just a cool side character with a base and fangs. She is one of the emotional centers of this universe, the embodiment of memory stretched across 1,000 years. We're going to trace her human half through Elise, through illness and absence, and the very mortal fear of leaving your child behind. We'll trace her demon, half through Hunson Abadir, the cosmic deadbeat at the center of time in her personal multiverse, who gives her power but not comfort, rules but not guidance. And in between those two gravitational pulls, there is Simon, shuffling through the ruins with a little girl on his shoulders, using the last intact pieces of his mind to keep her safe while the crown slowly erases him. As you drift, we'll weave in bubblegum, not as fan service, but as a centuries-long experiment in intimacy between two people who both outlive almost everyone they love. Their breakups, their reconciliations, the way I'm Just Your Problem is not just a song but a thesis statement about desire and resentment echoing across time. We'll listen to Everything Stays as a lullaby about how reality changes and doesn't, how a toy left in the dirt becomes a fossil, how a scared kid becomes a legend and still feels small. The pacing will stay gentle, chronological with soft digressions into symbols, lyrics and little philosophical side quests, so you can drift in and out without losing the thread. If you miss a detail about some vampire's power, that's fine. The emotional timeline will still be there when you float back, because Marceline's story is asking a quiet, devastating question. What does it mean to grow up when you never stop living? Is immortality a gift, a curse, or just an obscenely long time to learn how to forgive your parents, your exes, your past selves? Tonight we're going to walk that question forward, era by era, until the Vampire Queen finally gets to rest. A map of 1,000 years. How Marceline's life unfolds so, to keep you from feeling lost in 1,000 years of memories. Let's start by laying out the map. Not a perfect map, because this is adventure time and reality keeps melting at the edges, but a soft, simple timeline you can hold while you drift. First, there's the human era, pre-Mushroom War. Marceline as a little kid with Elise, in a world that still has grocery stores and working streetlights, and the illusion that time moves in a straight line. We're going to linger there, in the hospital room, in the quiet fear of a mother who knows she won't be around, in the early hints that this child doesn't age like other children. That's where the question of her powers begins, long before she ever drinks a drop of red. Then the universe cracks, the Mushroom War hits, and we move into the ash-colored chapter with Simon. This is canned soup on a ruined curb, broken toys in empty parking lots, a man with a magic crown and a mind dissolving in slow motion. Here is the thing. This is where abandonment and attachment braid together so tightly you can't tell them apart. We'll trace how I'll protect you slowly, painfully, becomes I don't remember you, and how that fracture echoes in every later relationship. After Simon drifts out of her timeline, we enter the wandering centuries. Marceline alone, moving through the skeleton of the old world as it mutates into Ooo. No big war every day. Just scavenged guitars, half-collapsed arcades, and long stretches of quiet where immortality feels less like power and more like a very long walk with no destination. Think about that for a second. Most of her 1,000 years are not boss fights. They're waiting rooms. Out of that stillness rises the vampire hunt. The 5 great vampires, each with a different flavor of terror, each carrying a power she will literally take into herself. Flight, invisibility, shape-shifting, soul-sucking. We'll come back to the battle with the Vampire King, to the way defeating him crowns her the Vampire Queen, and also traps her inside every monster she's ever slain. Not evil, not good, just complicated, in that specifically Adventure Time way. Then we arrive in Ooo proper, in the found family era. Finn, Jake, Bubblegum, Hunson, the resentment and reconciliation arc with her dad. The slow-burn, centuries-long romance with Bonnibel that keeps crashing into their worst selves and then improbably healing. This is where songs start to crystallize out of memory. Everything Stays as a lullaby about ruined playgrounds and stubborn hope. I'm Just Your Problem as a musical tantrum about being loved, but not chosen. And finally, as you're nearly asleep, we'll drift into Obsidian as a quiet epilogue. Not a new war, a check-in. A glimpse of what happens when immortality stops being a wound and starts, tentatively, to feel like home. Along the way, we'll keep slipping into the small in-betweens. Campfires, arguments, half-finished songs, where her most important wishes never get spoken out loud. Get cozy in the wreckage, setting the tone and invitation, so now, as we're about to rewind 1,000 years, you can actually do the opposite with your body. You can slow down. You can sink. Here is the thing. This is a wild cosmic story about immortality, apocalypse, and a half-demon vampire who has watched the universe rearrange itself around her. But you are not required to sit upright and alert like you're taking a test on the Mushroom War. This is a story you're meant to hear while you're already in bed. Lights low, maybe headphones in, blanket pulled up to your chin like a tiny personal force field against existence. So if you haven't yet, this is your cue. Roll onto your side, let your jaw unclench. Put your phone or your laptop somewhere you don't have to hold it up like a weak little Excalibur against gravity. We're going to keep talking. You don't have to keep doing. And if you drift off in the middle of a sentence, and you probably will, that's fine. That's the wish. When you wake up, if you feel like resurfacing into the timeline with us, you can slide back here and tell us your favorite Marceline moment in the comments. A song, a line, a tiny background glance. Everything stays in the garden. I'm just your problem, in front of bubblegum. Or maybe it's just her floating upside down in some ruined mall, eating fries out of an abandoned food court. Think about that for a second. A quiet thread of sleepy humans, all leaving little memory stones for a fictional immortal. To make this actually sleep-friendly, cue up a playlist now while you're still awake enough to move. Line up another Marceline lore episode. Or just loop this one, so the next hour of your night is handled by the algorithm, and you don't have to jab at your screen in the dark like a goblin at the center of time. Then you can forget about power buttons and autoplay, and just let time pass without your supervision. Because getting comfortable is not a trivial detail here, it mirrors Marceline's whole existence. She spends centuries doing exactly what you're doing right now, in that specifically Adventure Time way. Testing spaces. Asking, is this safe enough to rest in? A ruined mall with flickering escalators. A cave where the wind sounds like distant music. A tree fort where the rules are made up and the floor is mostly garbage. And eventually, finally, a real home with bubblegum, where the apocalypse is no longer in every corner of her vision. Let's start at the opposite of that. Before the wreckage. Before the vampires. Before the crown. We're going to rewind all the way back to when Marceline was just a little kid, with a human mom named Elise, in a world that still believed it had a future. A world where the bombs hadn't fallen yet. Hold that image as you drift. Canned soup on a normal stove, not over a campfire in a crater. 2 hands on a guitar that hasn't yet had to outlive its owner. And then, very slowly, we'll let the sky start to burn. Before the bombs, Marceline's human childhood, but before the sky burns, it flickers in fluorescent white. Let's start in a hospital that could be anywhere on pre-war Earth. No magic, no vampires, no candy kingdoms. Just a buzzing light that hums like a tired refrigerator, a plastic curtain half drawn, and a heartbeat monitor that believes the universe will keep following the same rules tomorrow that it followed today. City lights smear against the window. Cars move in obedient little lines. And in the middle of that almost aggressively normal reality, there's a baby who has no idea she's going to outlive all of it. Marceline is tiny here, just a bundle in a too-big blanket, cheeks scrunched, hair a dark little halo against a hospital pillow. The world has not yet collapsed into Ooo, but you can feel hairline fractures in the background. A news anchor whispering about escalating tensions. A doctor checking the time a little too often. A flicker in the power that makes everyone in the room pause for half a second longer than they should. Kids notice those pauses, even brand new ones, in that specifically Adventure Time way. Elise is the center of this small universe. She's not a hero, not a queen, not a cosmic entity, just a human woman who looks like she hasn't slept in several timelines. There is exhaustion there. Resignation, but also that low, steady power of someone who has decided, quietly and without ceremony, to keep going for one particular person. She holds Marceline like she's memorizing the weight, like she knows time is already bargaining against them. Her hands are gentle, but you can see a tremor when the building's air vents cut out for a breath and then surge back on. Here is the thing. Marceline is not entirely human, and the universe keeps leaving small, weird post-it notes about that. She doesn't spike fevers the way other kids do. She recovers from falls too fast, like her body is quietly editing the timeline of each bruise. Maybe her eyes linger a beat too long on shadows. Maybe she laughs at sounds no one else hears, as if reality has a secret audio track only she can access. No one explains it yet. Not Elise, not the doctors, not the absent demon father whose name we're going to save for later. Childhood on the edge of catastrophe feels like playing house on a fault line. You're watching cartoons while adults watch emergency broadcasts reflected in the TV glass. You're coloring while someone in the next room whispers about evacuation plans. No one tells you what's wrong, but you learn the shape of fear from the way your mother's hand tightens on yours when sirens test the air. Think about that for a second. Your first language isn't words, it's tension. And all of this, these apartments, these hospitals, these flickering city lights, are already scheduled to vanish, filed under before in the multiverse's memory. Marceline won't get to keep the world. She'll only get to keep fragments, the smell of Elise's jacket, the rhythm of her footsteps in a stairwell, a lullaby about everything staying, sung by someone who absolutely knows it won't. Because very soon, the wish for normal life will be revoked. The center of time for Marceline will snap from someday to right now. And when the sky finally does start to burn, the question isn't just who survives, it's which memories make it out with her. The Mushroom War, how a little girl survives the end, so the wish for normal life gets revoked. Quietly at first, not with a mushroom cloud, but with a siren that doesn't stop. With your mum's hands shaking as she zips a bag that suddenly has to hold your entire existence. Let's start in that hallway where the lights flicker and Elise is saying your name over and over. Like if she keeps the sound going, reality can't collapse all the way. Here is the thing. Before the apocalypse, Marceline's world is small in the good way. School, cartoons, the hum of a refrigerator. Then the sirens stretch time out like chewing gum. Neighbors shout. Doors slam. Someone drops a glass and it shatters. And you remember that sound more clearly than the news broadcast explaining the end of the world. Because you're a kid. You don't hear geopolitics. You hear your mother's voice right in your ear, saying, "Look at me. Look at me." There's that strange quiet right before the blasts. Not silence. Just a pause, like the universe is inhaling. The car radio cuts out. The sky gets wrong, too bright at the edges. Marceline's world shrinks to the feel of Elise's jacket under her fingers, to the rhythm of their footsteps in a stairwell, to one wish, stay with me. Think about that for a second. For everyone else, the center of time is the countdown on a missile. For Marceline, the center of time is her mother's hand not letting go. And then it happens. Not as a cinematic boom you can admire from a distance, but as a pressure in your chest, a light that burns through your eyelids, a sound that has teeth. Buildings don't just fall, they fold. Windows turn into knives. When it's over, the rules of her life are gone. No more school bell. No more bedtime. Just broken streets, ash in the air, and the realization that the adults are crying and no one is changing the channel. In the days after, the apocalypse looks like absence. The corner store is there, but the person behind the counter isn't. The playground is there, but the kids are not. Time stops being divided into weekdays and weekends and becomes before Mum went out for supplies and after she didn't come back. Elise makes choices we only see in flash fragments, pushing Marceline into shelter, running toward danger instead of away. That last tight hug that feels too deliberate to be casual. She doesn't say, "I'm going to die for you." Parents rarely narrate their own sacrifice, but the implication hangs in the air, radioactive and invisible. Later, centuries later, Marceline will dig through these memories the way you dig through an old attic. A flash of Elise's face becomes a verse. The echo of those sirens becomes the drone under a bass line. Every time she sings about everything staying, you can hear the protest in it, the wish that it had. Meanwhile, the land itself is mutating. Craters cool into strange valleys. Twisted highways become the bones of future candy streets. Irradiated ponds ferment into weird magic, the kind that will eventually give you a talking elephant and a kingdom made of gum. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the multiverse doesn't just end, it composts. Civilization rots down into something bright and absurd growing out of the ruins. But Marceline doesn't see whimsy yet. She sees empty billboards and hollow-eyed survivors who keep moving like they're following rules that no longer exist. She sees shadows that might be monsters or might be her imagination, and she feels hunger. Real, physical hunger, the kind that makes time stretch and bend until a minute feels like an hour. We're going to leave her there for a moment. A small, half-demon kid in an oversized coat, standing in the skeleton of a parking garage, clutching a worn toy and humming to keep herself from fracturing, alone at the end of the world. This is where Simon walks in. This is where salvation arrives, wearing the crown that will ruin him. Because the universe does grant her wish, not to be alone. It just charges interest. Enter Simon, canned soup, broken glass, and found family. So he finds her there, a little kid in a dead parking garage, humming at the end of the universe, and here comes this exhausted man in a torn suit, glasses cracked, crown crooked, carrying a plastic bag like he just walked in from the grocery store, instead of the end of the world. This is Simon Petrikov's entrance, not with power, but with canned soup and a voice that still remembers how to be gentle. Let's start with that image, because the show lingers on it for a reason. They're sitting in a shattered building, windows blown out, rebar like broken ribs around them. Wind whistles through empty office floors. And in the middle of this skeletal reality, Simon carefully opens a can, heats it over a tiny fire, and blows on the spoon before handing it to Marceline. He tests the temperature on his wrist. He says, "Too hot," and waits. It's a family dinner, reconstructed from memory, in a world that doesn't have families anymore. Here is the thing. Those tiny gestures are Simon's last defense against the chaos crawling into his mind. He straightens her backpack. He wipes her face with the clean corner of his sleeve. He apologizes when the soup is cold because the fire keeps going out. He's not a warrior, not a wizard yet. Just a brilliant, awkward antiquarian trying to parent at the center of time's worst timeline. But the crown is already whispering. You can see the duality. By day, he is brilliant and kind and painfully human, teaching her songs, drawing faces on the cans to make her laugh. By night, his eyes go distant, blue light leaking around the edges, as if another universe is trying to tune in through his skull. His jokes get stranger. His sentences trail off. He forgets words he used to know. From Marceline's side, it feels like this. She finally has someone who holds her hand when they cross a street that no longer has cars. Someone who wraps her in his big coat when the wind cuts too sharp, even though he's shivering harder than she is. He still sings to her, off-key, little improvised lullabies about pickles and goblins and the multiverse, because he can feel her shaking at night. Think about that for a second. The man losing his mind is the one anchoring her reality. We're going to watch him fray in slow motion. One day he forgets to eat. Another day he calls her by the wrong name, then panics, then laughs it off, then doesn't quite come back all the way. There is love there, terror there, the inevitable pull of an artifact whose rules were written with no concern for human attachment. This is Marceline's first real experience of being protected. And in that specifically Adventure Time way, it is also her first experience of being abandoned, not by choice but by madness. The crown doesn't steal him all at once. It repossesses him in installments. And when the debt finally comes due, when Simon is gone and only Ice King remains, he will still orbit her life for centuries without remembering the little girl he saved. Marceline will spend an immortal lifetime trying to fill the crater he leaves. The question is, what do you become when your first guardian forgets you exist? When your guardian becomes a stranger, the crown's slow theft, so when we pick back up, it's not with a clean break or a dramatic goodbye. It's with a half-remembered sentence, a misplaced can of soup, a man staring into the middle distance like he's listening to a radio you can't hear. The crown doesn't flip Simon into Ice King overnight. It erodes him, grain by grain, memory by memory. Let's start with the small lapses. He forgets where they hid for the night. He calls her kid instead of Marceline. He laughs at nothing and then looks terrified that he was laughing at all. There's that scene where he's shielding her from some mutant in a ruined street, and afterward he keeps asking if she's hurt, over and over, as if time has rewound and he can't get past the moment of impact. He is there, physically, but his mind is already wandering the edges of another reality. Here is the thing. For a child, this doesn't read as crown-induced dissociation. It reads as, I did something wrong. When your guardian's eyes glaze over, when his voice shifts into that sing-song Ice King cadence for a second, and then snaps back. You don't think ancient magical artifact hijacking his neural pathways. You think, why doesn't he see me? Think about that for a second. The universe is ending outside, and inside her little timeline, the center of time is this one adult, and even he is starting to flicker. We're going to watch that flicker widen into a gap. Full episodes where he doesn't recognize her, where he puts the crown on to get them food, and comes back talking to invisible princesses, calling her Gunta, building nonsense castles out of garbage. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound by rules older than he is, older than her, older than the Mushroom War itself. And every time he comes back to himself, he sees her fear and tries to paste reality back together with words. Marcy, I'll always protect you. I'm never going to leave you. Those lines land like wishes spoken into a broken cosmic microphone. They sound powerful in the moment, but the signal is already corrupted. We know, with the cruel hindsight the show loves, that he will become a man who kidnaps princesses and writes fanfiction about himself, orbiting her existence without remembering why she hurts when she looks at him. His promises don't just fail, they invert. And this is where Marceline's future relationships quietly start. The sarcasm, the deflection, the way she pushes Bubblegum away with, "I'm just your problem," before Bubblegum can say, "You're mine," and then leave, that's not random character flavor. That is a survival strategy forged in the ruins. With one data point, love can vanish while the body stays. People can be lost long before they die. Eventually, Simon understands what the crown is doing, at least in fragments. There's that heartbreaking choice. He puts the crown on to save her from some new horror, feels himself slipping, and realizes that the most protective act left is absence. So he walks away, not because he stops loving her, but because love, in that specifically Adventure Time way, has to negotiate with cosmic damage. He chooses to become a stranger on purpose, to keep her out of the blast radius of his madness. And the lesson she carries forward for 1,000 years is brutal and simple. If you let someone close, the universe or time or magic will eventually take them. Better to leave first, or never fully arrive. The question is, what do you grow into when that's your baseline rule for existence? Centuries of wandering, the long, quiet middle, you grow into a ghost that still has a body. A person who keeps moving because stopping would mean admitting that time is passing and you are not. Let's start with Marceline as a tween, wandering through the long radioactive afterglow of the Mushroom War. The cities are not ruins yet. They're in that uncanny middle stage where nature is still asking permission. Vines creep through cracked windows. Moss colonizes office carpets. Escalators are frozen mid-step, like the universe hit pause. She walks through abandoned malls with half-lit skylights and faded sale signs, her boots echoing in the emptiness. And here is the thing, the silence is louder than the bombs ever were. She hums to push back the quiet. At first, it's just noise, little tuneless loops to keep her brain from spiraling into every memory of Simon leaving. But slowly she starts putting words to it. A line about a broken toy, a line about a broken sky. She doesn't have a bass yet, so she drums on overturned food court tables, taps rhythms on display glass, tests how sound behaves in a dead world. Music becomes this tiny, portable center of time she can carry with her, a way to mark a timeline when calendars and clocks have stopped making sense. Years turn into decades. Decades blur towards centuries. Her body stalls somewhere around young adult, and the world around her mutates to catch up. Forests eat parking lots. Rivers reroute themselves through banking districts. Magic seeps in like a slow leak in reality, and suddenly there are creatures that feel like they walked out of a fever dream. Mutants, proto-monsters, little pocket kingdoms trying to declare themselves important in the rubble. No real rules yet. No real map. Just clusters of existence improvising a multiverse on hard mode. Marceline drifts between them. She's not fully human, not fully demon, not yet a vampire, and everyone can tell there is something off about her. A demon in a half-collapsed subway station offers her a deal he can't quite articulate, backing off when he looks into her eyes and sees a power he doesn't recognize. A spirit in a flooded library follows her for 3 days, circling her like a question it can't answer. They don't attack. They stare. They smell lineage on her, that Hunson Abadir signature like brimstone on a family tree. We're going to see this again and again. Beings who should be predators hesitate, because on some instinctive level they know she doesn't fit the usual food chain. Think about that for a second. You are effectively immortal in a universe that is still beta testing its own monsters, and even the nightmares are confused by you. So she keeps walking. She plays makeshift concerts for no one in empty amphitheaters of broken billboards. She writes proto-songs that will eventually become lullabies and fight anthems and breakup tracks 1,000 years later. She wishes, quietly, for someone to stay, and then remembers the rule she learned from Simon and takes it back. And somewhere, out beyond the tree line of this long, quiet middle, something old hears the same silence she's been singing against and refuses to go peacefully. Predators from the previous timeline, pale and patient, begin to stir. Vampires who will not die, who will not adapt, who will not let the world move on without a fight. They start walking toward her, following the faint trail of her songs. The wandering is about to end. The hunt is about to begin. The last vampires of Earth. A new kind of threat. They don't come as a swarm. They come as a rumor. A shadow that doesn't belong to any cloud. A cold patch of air in a world that is already mostly dead. A feeling when Marceline hums to herself in the ruins that something old is listening from just outside the edge of reality. Here is the thing. When predators survive the end of a universe, they do not get less dangerous. They get patient. These are the last vampires of Earth. Not the doofy background monsters you meet later in Ooo, but ancient, deliberate beings who slipped through the cracks of the Mushroom War and learned to feed on a quieter world. In this timeline, they are apex survivors stalking the scattered remnants of life, isolated humans, mutant animals, whatever still has warm blood and a pulse that believes it has a future. They move through the wreckage like they own the new timeline, because in their minds they do. Let's start with the one who thinks he owns everything, the Vampire King. He isn't just another monster. He's a philosophy in a cape. His power is domination charisma, sharpened into a weapon. The ability to command lesser vampires and reshape the rules of the hunt. His presence bends a room the way gravity bends light. When Marceline first feels him nearby, it's not a jump scare. It's that quiet animal certainty that something at the center of time has just turned its gaze toward you. Around him orbit the others, like a dark little multiverse of appetites. The Hierophant, rigid and traditional, clinging to ancient vampire lore as if etiquette can hold back extinction. The Moon, pale and silent, with healing that makes her almost impossible to kill, a slow, reflective terror that hangs overhead. The Empress, seductive and cruel, who once kept Simon under her spell, turning his fractured mind into her personal toy. And the Fool, chaotic and gleeful, a trickster whose flight and unpredictability make him feel like a bad wish granted by a bored universe. Each one is a different answer to the same question. How far will you go to keep existing when the world is over? Marceline meets them one by one, not as a queen, but as a tired kid with a chipped axe base and too many memories. There is fear there, real fear, but also that grim determination you get when you've already lost almost everything and refuse to lose the last scraps. She isn't chasing power. She's hunting because someone has to, because every human she's seen scraping by in the ruins is a reminder that life is a fragile cosmic accident, worth guarding. And we're going to notice something uncomfortable as you drift with her through these encounters. The vampires are what she is becoming. They refuse to move on, clinging to existence by consuming others, stretching their lives across centuries like a wish to never face the dark. Think about that for a second. Immortality, in that specifically Adventure Time way, is just stubbornness with fangs. Every victory she wins against them will not be clean. When Marceline destroys a vampire, its power doesn't vanish. It migrates. Flight, invisibility, shape-shifting, soul-sucking, even that regal aura of the king himself, all sink into her body and soul like permanent scars. She is saving the world by absorbing its predators. She is ending a timeline of monsters by becoming the archive of their power. And once you carry the last vampires inside you, what exactly are you guarding the world from? Them or yourself? Becoming the vampire hunter, courage, anger, and duty. Here is the thing. Once you've eaten the last vampire, you don't just wake up one morning and decide to be a hero. You get there one small terrible decision at a time. One ruined campfire, one empty crib, one more settlement that smells like fear and old blood instead of breakfast. Let's start with the moment it flips. Marceline has been surviving around vampires for years at this point, skirting their hunting grounds, reading the air the way other people read street signs. She's half demon, half human, already a little out of phase with normal reality, but she's still thinking like prey. Hide, endure, wait for time to move the danger somewhere else along the timeline. And then she finds a town that didn't move fast enough. Charred wagons, scattered toys, a lullaby half finished on someone's lips. No survivors, just the echo of what could have been her own childhood. Again, in that moment, something in her makes a wish. Not out loud, not cosmic, but absolute. No more. Not here. Not to anyone else. Anger hits first, hot and clean, aimed at these predators who walk around wearing her worst memories as a lifestyle. But braided into that rage is something quieter. The desire to keep some other scared kid from sitting alone in the ruins, waiting for a dad or a Simon who never comes back. Think about that for a second. She isn't just hunting them because they're monsters. She's hunting them because they are the shape of everything she's lost. And she can do it. That's the cruel, empowering part. Her half-demon resilience means she can take hits that would shatter a regular human. Sunlight bothers her less. Wounds close faster. The latent powers sleeping in her blood give her just enough edge that facing a vampire isn't instant suicide. It's a bad bet with slightly favorable odds. She can fly just high enough to ambush. She can withstand just enough of a bite to turn the tables. The universe has armed her. It has also isolated her, because once you become the hunter, you stop being a neighbor. You move from settlement to settlement like a rumor. You share a fire, share a song. You hold a baby for half a second, and you leave before dawn, so no one has time to see you as anything but a weapon pointed in the right direction. For now, she's at the center of time for these tiny communities, dropping in, bending their brief existence away from extinction, then vanishing back into the multiverse of ruins and wilds. There is loneliness there, resignation. The exhaustion of someone who keeps choosing danger so other people can choose breakfast and bad jokes instead. She doesn't get to build a house, she becomes the moving wall between them and annihilation. And we're going to be honest, on some level she needs this. The duty gives her shape. The hunt gives her a script in a universe that took away her childhood and then refused to end. But every hunt has rules, even if no one writes them down. You chase monsters long enough, they change you. Not just what you do, but what you are. Marceline can feel it at the edge of her awareness, standing over that first vampire she's about to kill for real, not in self-defense, but on purpose. This won't just save a town. This will rewrite her existence, reroute her timeline, fold new power into her veins. And when she takes that first bite, when the world holds its breath around that decision, what exactly is going to wake up inside her? First blood, how Marceline stole her first vampire power. What wakes up is not a roar. It's a silence. The fool is already laughing when she reaches him. One of the early vampires, one the others dismiss as a joke, as background noise in the apocalypse. He's perched on the broken marquee of an old movie theater, legs swinging over faded letters that once promised coming attractions in a different universe, before the Mushroom War melted the rules of reality into this long haunted afterglow. Let's start with the sound. Wind moving through hollow buildings, the slow creak of rusted metal. His giggle, thin and glassy, echoing down the empty street like a bad wish someone made and then forgot about. Marceline's boots crunch through broken glass, and you can feel her heart trying to climb out of her throat, even as her face goes still. Here is the thing about fear in a moment like this. It doesn't always look like screaming. Sometimes it looks like that strange, slow calm that arrives when your timeline has already forked, when you've already decided who you're going to be, and your body is just catching up. She has hunted him to save people he would drain. That's true. But she's also hunted him because she needs his power. Flight. Of all the cosmic tricks in the multiverse, this one is almost gentle. No fire, no claws, just the refusal to fall. Think about that for a second. In a world that already dropped her once, dropped her into war, into abandonment, into 1,000 years of watching existence rearrange itself. What does it mean to never hit the ground again? The fight is quick, in that specifically Adventure Time way where the choreography is bright and strange, but the emotions are ancient. He lunges, she dodges. There is a flash of teeth, a blur of red, the crack of old signage giving way. And then the fool is dust, scattering across the lobby where people once lined up for popcorn and a 2-hour escape from reality. This is where the universe changes its rules for her. When a vampire dies, its power doesn't just vanish. It looks for a new center of time, a new anchor in the timeline. With Marceline, it pours into her like spilled ink, like a second shadow trying to wear her from the inside. It burns cold. It feels wrong. It feels perfect. We're going to call it a gift, but it lands like a curse. Her veins hum. Her ears ring. Gravity lets go, just a little, and she rises an inch without meaning to, like the world has suddenly become optional. She laughs once, sharp and scared, because this is the exact moment she stops being able to pretend she's just a girl with a weird diet. She tests it outside, under a sky still bruised from old explosions. Up, then down, higher. The theater shrinks beneath her, the cracked street turning into a thin grey line. She should feel free. She feels hollowed out and rewritten. To defeat monsters, she is literally taking them into herself, line by line, power by power. What happens to your reflection when it's built from your enemies? She hovers there alone, a small silhouette against a huge, indifferent universe, and realizes this is only the first. One power down. More vampires waiting. More parts of herself she hasn't met yet. And as she drifts in the empty sky, quietly orbiting her own fear, Marceline can't help wondering what else she'll have to become before this hunt is finally over, and whether there will be anything recognizably human left when she gets there. Collecting powers, collecting scars. The 5 vampires, so she's drifting there, alone in the sky with that first stolen power humming under her skin. And here is the thing, the hunt doesn't slow down just because her heart wants to. Time in Ooo keeps moving. The vampires keep moving. And Marceline, whether she's ready or not, is now on a very specific timeline. 5 monsters, 5 confrontations, 5 scars. Let's start with the Hierophant. Old, rigid, obsessed with vampire tradition, like someone cosplaying a feudal lord at the end of the universe. The fight with him isn't flashy, it's tense. It feels like arguing with an ancient parent who thinks the rules matter more than the people living under them. Marceline's emotion here is mostly anger, but it's not hot anger. It's the slow burn of every unfair rule she watched humans obey before the Mushroom War wiped their cities away. When she wins, she doesn't just gain flight. She gains the memory of being small, watching adults insist, this is just how it is. Think about that for a second. Now she can literally rise above the old rules, but she also rises away from everyone else. Then there's the moon. Soft voice, unnervingly calm. Healing factor that turns a battle into a waiting game. The tone here is fear, but it's quiet fear. Like being in a hospital at 3 a.m. where the lights buzz and no one explains the rules of your own body. Marceline has to confront the part of herself that wants to just lie down and let someone else fix the pain. When she finally destroys the moon and takes that eerie regenerative power, it ties straight back to Simon leaving her with that note, to all the wounds time never healed for her. Now her body will always knit itself back together, but those early emotional fractures, those stay. Immortality as a wish granted in the cruelest possible way. The Empress is different. Manipulation in high heels. She used to control Simon, and that history hits Marceline like a second apocalypse. The fight is soaked in guilt. Guilt for not saving him earlier. Guilt for needing him at all. Invisibility and hypnotic influence become her new tools, and in that specifically Adventure Time way, they feel less like powers and more like metaphors for every time she learnt to disappear in a crowd, to read a room before it hurt her. She can vanish now. She can slip through reality like a rumor, Effective for protecting others, devastating for intimacy. By the time she's shape-shifting and soul-sucking, she's more weapon than girl, more legend than person. We're going to see her protect whole communities, but also watch her realize that their lifespans are a blink against her multiverse of memories. She is at the center of time in her own little universe of loss. And hanging over all of this is the Vampire King. Not just another target, but an existential question with fangs. He doesn't just ask, "Can you end us?" He asks, "Do you really want to? What if the part of her that feels monstrous already chose a side long ago?" The answer to that is waiting in their final confrontation, where the real wish on the table isn't about power at all. It's about what kind of existence Marceline is willing to live with. The Vampire King and the choice to become a monster. So when Marceline finally stands in front of the Vampire King, it doesn't feel like a boss fight. It feels like a ritual. The sky is that weird, bruised color Adventure Time uses when reality is about to do something important. The air is still, and you can feel, even half asleep, that time itself is holding its breath to see what she decides to become. Because here is the thing, he doesn't just attack her, he addresses her. The Vampire King speaks like a priest of predation, like someone who has had 1,000 years to turn hunger into a philosophy. He tells her she is wasting her power, wasting her existence, pretending she isn't what the multiverse has already written her to be. You drink monsters, he says. You end timelines for a living. Think about that for a second. The temptation is subtle, which makes it worse. He doesn't offer gold or a throne, he offers understanding. He says, in that specifically Adventure Time way, that mortals fear eternity, but she doesn't have to. That among humans, she will always be the shadow in the doorway, the one who does not age. The quiet reminder that the rules of the universe bent around her and never snapped back. Among vampires, among predators, she could just be normal. She could belong. And you can see it land. Because Marceline has already outlived the Mushroom War, already watched Simon dissolve under the crown, already listened to her own songs echo across centuries. She knows what it means to stay when everything else leaves. The king is basically saying, why pretend? Why act like you aren't already one of us? It's a dry, cosmic sales pitch. No brochure, just the promise that eternity is less lonely if you sit with the monsters. But this is where we're going to slow down. Marceline doesn't win because she's stronger. She wins because she refuses his premise. She fights, yes, using every borrowed power she took from the other vampires. The flight, the invisibility, the shape-shifting. But the real blow is a choice. When she stakes him and drinks his essence, when she pulls his power into herself like a final irreversible wish, she is not just ending him, she is signing a contract with her own future. After that, she is a full vampire. No more half measures, no more half-human in the way she once was with Elise. Her mortality, already stretched, is now effectively locked in. She has secured the universe against this predator by becoming the apex predator in his place. And there is victory there, relief, silence after the storm. There is also loss. The loss is quieter, but it lingers longer than any scream. She realizes that to protect the world from monsters, she has become the monster on the perimeter, the one everyone depends on but no one really understands. She has traded one possible death for a slower erosion. Friends aging out of her timeline, loves flickering, and going out while she remains. So yes, she wins. The king is gone. Ooo is safer. But as you drift, you can hold the last question with her. Did Marceline actually escape the fate he promised? Or did she just accept a different version of it? A more drawn-out kind of loss that will only really make sense 1,000 years from now. Waking up as the Vampire Queen, identity after the hunt. So she wins. And then, nothing happens. No final boss music, no cosmic achievement unlocked, no great wish descending from the universe to tell her who she is. Now, the Vampire King dissolves, his power folds into her, and what's left standing in the dust is just Marceline. One girl, one axe, and a silence that feels way too big for her body. The hunt is over. The targets are gone. Time keeps moving anyway. Here is the thing. For years, her existence has been defined by motion, track, fight, survive, repeat. Every new vampire was another rule to follow, another line in her private quest log. And when you pull that away, when the last big monster is gone, what you're left with is this weird echoing quiet where you can hear your own thoughts again. Think about that for a second. After an apocalypse and a war and 1,000 little heartbreaks, the scariest enemy might just be boredom. The title doesn't land all at once. Vampire Queen starts as a whisper, a warning told around tiny campfires in half-built villages, a name scratched into the side of a ruined freeway pillar. Don't go north. The Vampire Queen lives there. Some people mean it in fear, some in awe, some as a practical PSA like, watch out for falling rocks, but the rocks play bass and drink red, and Marceline hears it. She tries it on. If people are going to tell a story about her, she might as well be the one writing it. So she leans into the persona, cape theatrically flapping, fangs bared a little longer than necessary, floating just a bit too high above the ground. She is not evil. She is not even indifferent. She is just very, very done with being powerless. And the crown she wears now is made of reputation. Let's start with the body. With this new form that doesn't quite feel finished yet, we're going to watch her experiment with herself the way a kid tests the edges of a new playground. She hangs upside down in caves for hours, just because she can. She stretches into monstrous silhouettes against ruined city walls, wings and claws, and eyes that glow like distant exit signs in a dead moor. She drains a wolf's soul and then forces it back, just to see how close she can get without crossing her own line. There is tension there. Curiosity. The thrill of power humming under her skin, right next to that old, stubborn instinct to protect. She knows she can end a bandit camp in seconds. She also knows she can hover just above them, invisible, and let the fear of her do half the work. Sometimes she steps in. Sometimes she doesn't. This is how her morality evolves, not as a clear code, but as a series of late-night experiments with consequence. Pattern interrupt. Imagine a universe where she never stopped hunting. No quiet, no questions, just endless targets. Easier in some ways. But Ooo won't let her stay in that timeline. Little kingdoms start to rise from the rubble. Candy, slime, fire, tiny centers of time and culture in a shattered multiverse. And the legend of the Vampire Queen keeps brushing up against their borders. Soon, she'll have to decide, remain a wandering ghost story, or step inside the walls and risk being known again. From wasteland to Ooo, watching a new world grow so Marceline keeps walking. She walks long enough that the ruins stop being ruins and start being soil. Highways crack open, rebar ribs poking through, and forests grow teeth and swallow them whole. Exit signs disappear under moss. Billboards peel away into nests. You could stand where a 6-lane overpass once roared and only hear wind in the leaves and the slow, patient chewing of vines as they reclaim the last traces of that old reality. Here is the thing. When you live through an apocalypse, you think the story ends there. Mushroom clouds, monsters, curtain. But Marceline lives long enough to find out that the universe is weirder than that. Radiation doesn't just poison. In that specifically Adventure Time way, it blooms. It mutates animals into people with opinions. It turns puddles into sentient slime. It takes the dead shopping aisles of a grocery store and over centuries translates them into the pastel geometry of a future candy kingdom. She sees it like a time-lapse no one else can watch. Craters fill with water, then algae, then frogs that argue about philosophy. Parking lots sprout dandelions, then saplings, then whole forests that hum with low, magical power. A cracked food court becomes a valley. The escalators rust away, but in her mind, she can still ride them. Think about that for a second. You're standing in a field of waving grass, and Marceline is seeing a mall. From her vantage point, Ooo is always double exposed. There's the world everyone else believes is all there ever was. Candy streets, slime rivers, little kingdoms orbiting each other like planets in a tiny multiverse. And then there's the ghost layer only she remembers. She can look at the early Candy Kingdom, half-formed and sticky, and know there's a toy store under that castle, a pharmacy under that plaza, a place she once hid from the rain under what will become a gumdrop turret. We're going to sit with her ambivalence here, because life is coming back. Loud, colorful, ridiculous life. Birds speak in full sentences. Wolves negotiate. Even the vampires she once hunted are just legends now, fading into bedtime stories. That should feel like victory. It does, in flashes. But there is also the quiet grief of being the only one who remembers what burned. No one else looks at a serene grassy hill and thinks, "Ah, yes, the old parking lot where Simon found canned soup." As time keeps folding, familiar landmarks start showing up in unfamiliar forms. The tree that will one day be the tree fort is just a weird, overgrown sentinel on a hill, roots wrapped around the skeleton of some forgotten pre-war building. The air around certain caves feels thin, like reality is testing weak spots, early whispers of where nightosphere portals will eventually tear through. Little anomalies in the rules of existence that only someone who's watched the timeline warp can feel in her bones. Let's start naming the shadows moving toward her, even if they're not here yet. Somewhere, Hunson Abadir is still just a looming absence, a promise of demonic power and complicated family dinners. Far away, a brilliant pink mind is coalescing into Princess Bubblegum, building her first candy subjects out of the same radiation that ruined everything. And much, much later, a human boy and a stretchy dog will climb that tree and turn her haunted vantage point into a home. They don't know it yet. She can't know it yet, but the world is quietly wishing them into place. And Marceline, alone in the center of her own time, keeps walking, waiting for the day when this strange new Ooo will finally talk back. Hunson Abadir, the father who eats souls, and then one day, the world finally does talk back. Not with a gentle hello, with a portal tearing open in the air like the universe itself is yawning, with green fire and screaming geometry and a voice that sounds like a legal contract learned how to shout. That is how Hunson Abadir walks into Marceline's life. Not as a dad stepping through a doorway, but as an event, as a problem, as a force of nature in a suit. Let's start with that entrance, because here is the thing. For Marceline, chaos has always been background noise. Mushroom clouds, ruined cities, Simon arguing with the crown. But Hunson is a different flavor of chaos. He arrives from the nightosphere, this bureaucratic hell dimension he rules, where souls are currency and torment is just policy. He doesn't knock. He doesn't ask. He just appears, all teeth and contracts, and declares with absolute confidence that he is her father and that this is a reunion. He is not tender. He is not gentle. He is an immortal demon whose idea of affection is bragging about how delicious souls are while standing 2 feet from his half-human daughter who survived a war. Think about that for a second. Marceline, who spent her childhood watching reality melt, now has a parent whose job is to melt people on purpose. Hunson's power is cosmic, but it's also mundane in that specifically Adventure Time way. He runs the nightosphere like a demonic office full of contracts, rules, and loopholes, and yet every business decision is someone's existence getting chewed up. Marceline's lingering humanity, the fragile part of her that still remembers canned soup with Simon and lullabies with Elise, recoils from this. She knows what suffering looks like from the ground. He knows it from a throne. So she resents him. She resents that he wasn't there when she was small and scared and human, that he only shows up when she's powerful enough to be interesting. She resents how casually he talks about eating souls, how he treats her music, her autonomy, even her literal physical form as extensions of his brand. Not a daughter, a possession, a demonic asset with feelings inconveniently attached. And yet, we're going to admit something uncomfortable. Hunson does care. Twisted, misaligned, catastrophically expressed care. But care. He is proud of her power. He beams when she stands up to him, even as he complains. Occasionally, he tries to connect by offering her the nightosphere, like a dad handing over the family business without realizing the business is a nightmare engine. There are moments where the mask slips, where his voice softens by a fraction, where he hesitates before hurting her friends, where you can almost see the outline of someone who wanted a kid and only knew one demonic way to show it. But Hunson is not a phase. He is a wound stretched across centuries, an argument that never quite ends. Marceline will keep rejecting his offers, keep summoning and banishing him, keep learning the slow art of setting boundaries with a being who does not believe boundaries apply. And the real question is, What happens when an immortal finally decides that even her father doesn't get to rewrite her song? Half demon, full immortal, what Marceline really is here is the thing. You cannot answer that question about Marceline and her father without talking about what she actually is. Not the aesthetic, not the Vampire Queen title, but the weird layered biology and metaphysics of this one person who has survived an apocalypse, a demon household, and a vampire war, and is still somehow making music about her feelings. Let's start at the beginning, in that specifically Adventure Time way, where beginnings are already endings. Marceline is born to a human mother, Elise, in the old human world before the Mushroom War turns the planet into a magical wasteland. Human body, human childhood, human fears. You can see it in those flashbacks. The way she clings to Simon, the way she gets sick, the way she cries. She is not a tiny immortal god. She is a kid. And then there is Hunson Abadir, her father, who drags the Nightosphere around with him like a personal storm cloud. That's where the demon half comes in. Her demon side is not just horns and a last name, it is emotional intensity turned up past the safe limit. It is resilience that borders on terrifying. It is that comfort with darkness and chaos, the way she can walk through a haunted cave or a post-war ruin and feel more at home than at a picnic. She literally has a connection to the Nightosphere, can summon portals, can withstand its atmosphere. She is not human looking at hell. She is family visiting a relative's aggressively unpleasant house. But then, later on the timeline, she hunts the vampires. She destroys the main five, one by one, and in doing that, she absorbs their powers. Flight, invisibility, shape-shifting, and most crucially, the one that locks everything in place, true vampirism. That is the moment her physical age freezes. No more growing up. No more wrinkles. No more slow decay. Time still moves. The universe still expands. Timelines still fracture and heal. But her body steps out of that system. Vampirism gives her practical immortality, rapid healing, survival through injuries that should end in existence, a body that can be shattered and then, inconveniently, reconstitute itself. She can be staked, drained, blasted, but she comes back. Not because the rules of reality like her, but because those rules have been edited around her. So what is she now? Human, demon, vampire? Or something that doesn't fit any category we have a neat word for? Think about that for a second. Her human side gives her empathy and memory. Her demon side gives her power and hunger. Her vampire side gives her stasis and survival. She is pulled between mortality, monstrosity, and permanence, all at once, like three different cosmic contracts stapled to the same soul. And this is where it gets quietly devastating, because we're going to see that hybrid nature isn't just a lore detail, it's a thesis. Adventure Time loves mixed, liminal identities, Simon and Ice King, Bubblegum as both person and Candy Kingdom, Prismo as both dream and cosmic wishmaster at the center of time. Marceline is part of that multiverse pattern. She is powerful precisely because she doesn't fit the rules, and perpetually unsettled for the same reason. She can't go back to being just human. She can't relax into being only demon. She can't even hide inside the vampire label. So she has to invent a new category, Marceline. And the rest of her immortal life is basically one long experiment in what that wish means. Because once you understand what she is, the next question becomes much harder. How do you live forever when no identity ever fully fits? The first time Marceline met Bubblegum and didn't know it mattered. So when you ask, how do you live forever when no identity fits? The universe does something very Adventure Time about it. It doesn't give Marceline an answer. It gives her a girl in a lab coat made of sugar. Let's start in the early days of the Candy Kingdom, when it's barely a kingdom at all. Just scattered gumdrop huts, half-finished walls, and one overworked pink teenager trying to bootstrap a civilization out of literal candy. Marceline drifts through this new reality like a wandering glitch in the timeline, a punk ghost with an axe base and no fixed address, dropping in from the ruined edges of the world whenever she gets bored. She is not a citizen, she is an event. Bubblegum, even then, is the opposite of an event. She is infrastructure. Clipboards, experiments, blueprints for irrigation systems and defense grids, all color-coded, all terrifyingly efficient, where Marceline improvises her existence, one song and one petty theft at a time. Bubblegum is already trying to bend time forward, to build a stable future by sheer force of intellect and will. Here is the thing. The universe loves contrast, so of course their first real interaction is basically a low-stakes war. Marceline swoops in, scares the candy people, maybe steals some royal jelly just because it's shiny and she wants to see what happens. PB marches out with a half-built candy cannon, furious, scientifically offended that this chaos gremlin is messing with her controlled environment. She calls Marceline irresponsible. Marceline calls her Princess Fancy Pants. It escalates quickly. They argue about rules, about power, about whether fear is a valid security system. Bubblegum wants order so badly you can hear it in her clipped sentences. Marceline wants freedom so badly she'll burn bridges just to prove no one owns her. And under all of that, humming like background radiation at the center of time, there's something else. Attraction, curiosity, the sense that this person is dangerous not because they can hurt you, but because they can see you. Think about that for a second. Marceline, who has already lost Simon, who has watched one universe die and another grow up weird and candy-colored in its bones, meets someone who might actually stay, someone building a kingdom that could in theory last forever. That is intoxicating and terrifying, because if you let yourself wish for permanence again, you might have to lose it again. For Bubblegum, it's the mirror image. She looks at Marceline and sees pure, ungovernable existence. No schedule, no duty, no throne. That freedom is everything she secretly desires and everything she cannot allow herself to touch without risking the delicate balance of her people. So she tries to manage Marceline like a security threat, when what she's really afraid of is losing control of her own heart. So they fight. They team up against some wandering vampire remnant. They bicker over whether it's ethical to weaponize gum golems. They share one ridiculous late-night adventure on the unfinished candy walls, passing a stolen thermos of weird post-war juice, laughing at how the moon looks like a bruised jawbreaker. And then, as dawn leaks over the blasted horizon, Marceline plays a lazy, half-made-up riff on her bass. PB, exhausted, makes one dry joke about the chord progression violating basic musical safety protocols. They lock eyes for half a second. It feels small, a throwaway. Just two immortals in training, sharing a look before time really starts. But from our vantage point, across the multiverse of their future breakups and reconciliations, you can see it. That tiny moment is the first quiet wish they make for each other. A wish they won't know how to keep for centuries. Love in slow motion. Centuries of Marceline and Bonnibel. So that shared look, that tiny almost nothing between two kids at the edge of the multiverse, stretches out. It doesn't stay a moment. It becomes a timeline. A whole slow-motion arc of desire, denial, and delay, unfolding over centuries, while the universe keeps pretending this is just a goofy cartoon about candy people. Let's start with the easy phase, the early camaraderie. Marceline and Bonnibel as weird, brilliant teenagers, in a broken reality, trading mixtapes and experiments, playing in half-finished labs and half-finished bands. They're not immortal legends yet. They're just two overachievers in different directions, orbiting each other because nobody else really gets how heavy time feels when you can already sense you're going to outlast everyone around you. Then it tilts. Friendship burns hotter. They slip into a passionate, unstable romantic period that the show only lets you glimpse in fragments. Shared shirts, abandoned rock shows, arguments that are too sharp to be casual. Here is the thing. Their problem isn't a lack of love, it's a mismatch of timelines. Marceline moves through existence like a drifting satellite, improvising, following the emotional weather. Bubblegum moves like a laser, focused, rigid, responsible for an entire kingdom that literally melts if she relaxes. Think about that for a second. One of them hears eternity and thinks, "We have all the time in the universe, we can figure it out." The other hears eternity and thinks, "I will never be done working." Those are not compatible clocks. Not yet. So you get the breakup. Not with a single catastrophic wish or betrayal, but with 1,000 tiny choices where Bubblegum picks the Candy Kingdom, and Marceline feels herself demoted from central character to background NPC. That's why I'm Just Your Problem lands like an emotional document, not just a song. She's not being poetic. She's filing a complaint with reality. She's saying, I am immortal, I have cosmic power, and I still can't get you to text me back. And Bonnibel, in that specifically Adventure Time way, isn't cold. She's compartmentalized. She doesn't know how to prioritize one person over an entire population whose lives tick by like fruit flies compared to her own long existence. She can see every citizen's brief timeline. She can't justify choosing one vampire over thousands of marshmallow children who will be gone in a blink. So they drift into that long, awkward estrangement. Exes who never quite stop being friends. Friends who never quite stop being exes. They bicker at concerts. They trade barbs at royal meetings. But then you notice the small, tender anomalies in the dataset. The way Marceline instinctively steps between bubblegum and danger. The way Bonnibel's voice softens when she says Marcy, like the word itself is a private wish. Shared songs become their encrypted messages. Little inside jokes about old adventures. Quiet, domestic moments. Marceline on Bubblegum's balcony at 3 a.m., both pretending they're just there for the view. They keep orbiting because, under all the rules and responsibilities, they are still each other's first real peer in a post-apocalyptic universe. We're going to see that it takes literal centuries and a frankly irresponsible amount of emotional repression before they can name what's been obvious from the center of time all along. But before they can build something stable, Marceline has to survive another loss, a much older one buried even deeper. And that's where the past starts knocking. Pattern break, zooming in on one quiet night in the tree fort, and that's where the past starts knocking. But instead of answering the door, let's start somewhere smaller. One night, one couch, one little island of reality in the middle of 1,000 years of chaos. It's late in the tree fort, the kind of late where even the clock looks tired. Finn is half melted into the couch, blanket up to his chin, eyes doing that slow blink where you can tell he's trying to stay awake for no real reason except he wants to be here. Jake is in the kitchen, using his powers to stretch 3 arms at once so he can stir hot chocolate, flip a pancake, and also lazily scratch his own back. Marceline is in the middle of it all. Bass across her lap, fingers resting on the strings like they're breathing. Here is the thing. This is the same universe that gave her mushroom clouds and empty playgrounds. The same timeline that made her walk through ruins with a cracked doll and a man slowly losing his mind to a crown. And now she's arguing with Jake about whether marshmallows count as a real dinner. She leans back, fangs just barely peeking, and says, "You know, there used to be this cereal that turned the milk neon blue. It was like 90% sugar and 1% lies." Finn blinks. Whoa. They had blue milk before magic? He's genuinely trying to imagine a pre-O grocery aisle, as if it was some distant corner of the multiverse. Jake just shrugs. If it doesn't shapeshift or scream, I don't respect it as food. The generational gap hangs there, but softly, not as tragedy, as curiosity. She's talking about malls and movie theaters the way they talk about dungeons and cosmic wish-granting bears. Different eras, same bewildered affection for how weird existence is. She starts to play. Not a big performance, not a concert for the center of time, just a lazy, looping progression that feels like a heartbeat learned to hum. Finn mumbles, "What's that one about?" without opening his eyes. Marceline thinks for a second. It's about when everything changes, but somehow everything stays. You know, he doesn't, not really. He hasn't watched a civilization dissolve. He hasn't buried 1,000 tiny versions of himself across centuries. But he nods anyway, because he can feel it. And we're going to notice something here. What she's doing for them in this moment, turning apocalypse memories into a quiet song you can fall asleep to, is exactly what we're doing for her in this video. Taking that raw radioactive pain and cooling it down until it's a nightlight. Same history, different volume. Jake brings over mugs that steam like little warm portals in the dim light. They clink them together. No destiny, no throne, no vampire queen. Just 3 friends, suspended in a pocket of borrowed peace, ignoring the cosmic rules for one night. Eventually, Finn's breathing evens out. Jake's snoring joins in, a deeply undignified harmony. Marceline keeps playing softer and softer, until even the notes feel sleepy. Then she stops. She drifts over to the window. Outside, the sky is clear in that specifically Adventure Time way, stars looking less like distant suns and more like tiny holes poked in the fabric of reality. She presses her forehead to the glass. 1,000 years sit on her shoulders. Every war, every loss, every wish she never got to make. But this moment, this one quiet night in a battered tree fort at the edge of the multiverse, it's light, almost weightless. Think about that for a second. Tomorrow, the past will knock louder. Old ghosts, older promises. But for now, she just watches the sky, holding both truths at once, the enormity of her existence and the small miraculous fact that for the first time in a long time, she's not facing it alone. Songs as memory palaces. Why Marceline sings? So here is the thing about that quiet night in the tree fort. Marceline is not just watching the sky, she is listening to her own internal jukebox. Every era, every heartbreak, every apocalypse she has survived is filed away as a track, and when the universe gets too loud, she presses play on herself. Let's start with how unusual that is in this world. In Adventure Time, Marceline's songs are not background music. They are diegetic, written by her, performed by her, inside the reality of the show. When she sings, you are not hearing a soundtrack. You are reading her diary out loud. Fry song, Woke Up. Redemption song. They're not just vibes, they're timestamps on the timeline of a 1,000-year existence. Tiny audio fossils pressed into the sediment of time. Everything Stays might be the purest example. A lullaby born in the ashes of the Mushroom War, sung by a little girl with a hand-me-down axe, and a guardian who is slowly disappearing behind a crown. It sounds gentle. It is not gentle. Everything stays right where you left it. She sings, in a world where nothing stayed, cities melted, oceans poisoned, the sky itself rewritten. The melody is soft enough to fall asleep to, but the lyrics are a spell she's casting on herself and on you. An attempt to believe that amid cosmic mutation, some part of you can remain. Think about that for a second. When she sings it to young Simon in Stakes, or hums it to herself, she is doing memory work. She is compressing the horror of wandering a ruined Earth into a single looping pattern. Not denying it, just making it small enough to hold, small enough to share. Then, centuries later, you get I'm Just Your Problem. Different era, different wound, same method. That song is not polished. It's a live emotional detonation in front of friends, a millennium of resentment toward bubblegum finally given shape. She is not evil. She is not even being fair. She is just bleeding in 4/4 time. The insecurity, the desire to matter, the fury at being treated like a problem instead of a person. Marceline takes all of that cosmic mess and pins it to a simple chord progression, so she can look at it without dissolving. Because for an immortal, memory is not a scrapbook, it's a flood. You don't get the mercy of forgetting. You remember the canned soup with Simon, the first vampire you drained, the first time bubblegum walked away, and they all coexist, all at once, with equal power. Songs become her personal wish system, her way to bend overwhelming existence into discrete, replayable episodes. 3 minutes where the pain is framed, bordered, and, crucially, can end. And in this video, we're going to walk that internal playlist with her, track by track, era by era, across a 1,000-year album recorded at the center of time inside one person. We've heard the lullabies and the arguments. Next, we'll follow where those songs point, back into the ruins, the vampires, and the moment a scared kid decided to become a queen. Immortality and the fear of forgetting and being forgotten. Let's start with a quiet horror that doesn't look like horror at all. You, lying in bed, listening to a song you like. Marceline, lying in some ruined pre-Ooo building, listening to the hum of a broken fluorescent light. Same posture, completely different universe. The question is not just what happened to you. The question is, what do you choose to remember? And what do you try to bury under jokes and loud music? Here is the thing. Marceline's immortality is not abstract. It has a face. Several faces, actually. Her mother's face, soft and tired, before the Mushroom War. Simon's face, framed by cracked glasses, before the crown finished rewriting his mind. The skyline of the world before magic flooded reality and turned Earth into Ooo. She remembers canned soup shared with Simon in a parking garage, remembers the exact way his hands shook when he put the crown back on. Think about that for a second. Everyone else only knows Ice King as a punchline. She knows the man the universe stole. That is the power and the curse of her timeline. She is a living archive of a world that no longer exists. No one else remembers her mother's lullaby. No one else remembers the moment the bombs fell as anything other than legend. For most people in Ooo, the war is myth. For Marceline, it's an afternoon she still wakes up from. And the flip side is brutal. Because everyone she loves, unless they're also immortal or demon adjacent, will eventually leave, or forget, or change into someone unrecognizable. Simon becomes Ice King. Bubblegum evolves from punk scientist kid to near absolute ruler, to something softer and older. Friends die. Friends reincarnate. Friends move 3 kingdoms over and become different people in the same bodies. New attachments are precious. They are also terrifying. Every new friendship is a wish you make knowing the universe will absolutely collect, so she starts keeping anchors. Old photos. A teddy bear. A battle axe that is also a base. A worn t-shirt from a show that technically never happened because the band got eaten by a cosmic deer. Songs most of all. Each object is a tiny center of time in her personal multiverse, a way to pin one version of reality in place so it doesn't get washed away by centuries. When you only get 80 years, losing a trinket is annoying. When you get 1,000, losing a trinket can feel like losing the last surviving witness. That is why, when a keepsake breaks, she doesn't just get mad, she gets existential. She is not angry about the object. She is angry at time, at the rules of existence, at a universe that keeps asking her to let go without explaining how. And yet, even immortals don't get to stay frozen. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the show keeps nudging her forward. We're going to watch her learn that the goal is not to erase the past or to outlast it, but to carry it, to let go of the person while still holding the song. The real question is what happens when even the songs have to change. Marceline and the Mortals, Finn, Jake, and the Short-Lived, so when the songs have to change, they usually show up wearing a backpack and a hat. They yell mathematical, they rush in head first, and they have no idea they're walking into the life of someone who has already lost almost everything. That's Finn for Marceline. Not just a hero, but a reminder that the universe still manufactures new people who haven't been broken yet. Let's start with the obvious surface read. She's his chaos friend, the bad influence, the vampire queen who drags him into Sky Witch lairs and abandoned arenas instead of telling him to do his homework. But here is the thing. Underneath the pranks and the fake-outs, Marceline is playing this very delicate game with time. She knows his entire existence will be a blip across her timeline, a bright little flare against 1,000 years of memory, and that knowledge shapes every joke, every dare, every half-serious lesson. Sometimes she leans into the big sister role so hard you can feel her forgetting to protect herself, teaching him to face fear in the labyrinth with the ghost of her childhood, singing "I'm just your problem" in front of him, and letting him see that heroes and monsters both have humiliating, messy desires. She becomes this secret mentor, not with lectures, but with exposure therapy to reality, heartbreak, regret, the power of saying what hurts out loud. Think about that for a second. The immortal vampire is the one trying to speedrun his emotional growth because she knows she will not be there when he's old. And then there are the moments where she pulls back, disappears for long stretches, shrugs off his concern with a joke. She is not indifferent. She is not uncaring. She is just someone who has watched too many mortals turn into anniversaries. When Finn grows, when he changes girlfriends, when his voice drops, you can almost feel Marceline flinch at how fast human time moves, how quickly the kid who broke into her house to steal her base becomes a man with his own traumas. Jake is different. Jake is low-pressure companionship. He doesn't need to decode the entire cosmic trauma arc. He just accepts that she drinks red, plays bass, and occasionally turns into a dragon. Their friendship is built on hanging out on clouds, noodling on instruments, making dumb little songs that will never be on any magical record. He doesn't demand her full history, he just shares the couch. In that specifically Adventure Time way, he's like a warm, stretchy gravity, keeping her from drifting into pure nostalgia orbit. Being around them tethers her to the present tense of existence. No ancient vampire court. No Mushroom War ruins. Just this afternoon, this dungeon crawl, this jam session. We're going to see that it's the mortals who stop her from becoming a museum exhibit of her own past, who keep her from living entirely at the center of time in her head, replaying old losses like a cursed wish. But immortality has rules. One of them is simple. She will almost certainly outlive them all. Loving Finn and Jake means pre-accepting the future ache, carrying the knowledge that one day they'll only exist as songs she plays for people who never met them, and she chooses them anyway. The question is, after they're gone, who stays long enough to carry her? When the past knocks on the door, Simon returns as Ice King. The answer, inconveniently, is that someone does stay. He just doesn't come back the way she remembers. Let's start with the version you meet first. Ice King, this floating blue menace with a crunchy beard, bad boundaries, and a personality that feels like a wish gone wrong. To most of Ooo, he's a nuisance. To you, watching, he's comic relief. To Marceline, he is a walking migraine. He breaks into her house, steals her fries, crashes her jam sessions. He is not scary. He is not majestic. He is just exhausting in that specifically Adventure Time way, where absurdity hides something radioactive underneath. Here is the thing. Marceline hates him because he is annoying, but she also hates him because on some level, immediately, her brain is screaming that his voice is wrong in exactly the way Simon's became wrong. His laugh, his eyes, the way he clings. Familiar. Too familiar. Think about that for a second. Imagine your childhood protector returning as the guy everyone else treats like the local cryptid with Wi-Fi. We're going to slow down on I Remember You, because that episode is basically her trauma turned into a bottle episode. Ice King barges in wanting help to write a song to get princesses. She wants him gone. She wants him out of her house, out of her reality, out of her head. But then he pulls out those old, crumpled papers, his lyrics. The letters Simon wrote to her as the crown was eating him alive, scattered across the timeline like emotional shrapnel. She sings them back to him. He harmonizes without understanding. He is there, physically inches away, wailing along, and he has no idea that he is duetting with the little girl he once carried through a ruined city, feeding her canned soup under a broken billboard while the universe reset itself outside. There is sadness there, desperation, the helplessness of loving someone who is still alive and already gone. Marceline lives in that contradiction. Push him away to protect herself. Pull him closer to search for Simon in the static. She blocks his calls. She lets him stay over. She screams at him. She hugs him. It's not logical. It's not healthy. It is just what happens when time refuses to give you a clean break. When the rules of existence mean the person you're mourning keeps wandering back in, asking if you want to hang out. This is her core wound, crystallized. Simon is one continuous person across the multiverse, but his mind has been shattered by power he never wanted. One identity, two incompatible timelines, the man who saved her and the King of Ice who doesn't remember. How do you move on when your grief has a face and keeps knocking on your door? Eventually, magic intervenes. Crowns are undone. Memories return. They do get a kind of closure at the center of time and healing. But centuries of pain do not vanish with one wish. And the universe, as always, is not done asking Marceline what she's willing to live with next. Pattern break. A quiet jam session as emotional X-ray. So here is the thing. After all those centuries of chaos and crowns and broken promises, the universe sometimes compresses Marceline's entire existence into 3 minutes and a melody. Let's start in a tiny, cluttered living room, way smaller than the cosmic scale we've been talking about. The lights are low, that warm orange that makes everything look a little softer, like time itself is tired. Marceline is on the couch with her axe base, slouched but coiled, one knee up, hair spilling over her face. Across from her, Ice King stands there with that awkward, hunched posture, hands half raised, like he's not sure if this is a concert or an apology. She starts, "I remember you," almost lazily, just a few plucked notes, thin and echoing. Her voice comes in quiet, a little rough at the edges, like it has to scrape through 1,000 years of dust to get out. The air feels heavy. You can practically hear the silence listening. The lyrics are simple. That's the trap. Simple like a diary entry you were never supposed to read out loud. She sings about notes and letters and someone who used to be there. She is not saying, "You raised me in the ruins of the old world, and then the crown stole you." She is not saying, "You are the only witness to my human childhood, and you don't even know your own name." But the song is. The song is doing all the work that regular dialogue cannot survive. Ice King fumbles along, humming, adding goofy little lines, misunderstanding half of it. On the surface, he's just doing his usual weird off-key improv, but watch his eyes. Watch the way his voice suddenly steadies on a phrase he doesn't consciously recognize. There is confusion there. And then, for a few beats, there is lucidity, like the crown loosens its grip just enough for Simon to press his face against the glass of his own mind. Think about that for a second. 1,000-year timeline, a cosmic war, the rise and fall of empires, and the emotional fulcrum is a man in a bathrobe trying to remember why this song hurts. The lyrics function like a wish spoken sideways. Not, "I wish you were Simon again," because Marceline has learned what wishes cost. Instead, "I remember you." A statement, a spell, a refusal to let reality rewrite their history. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the universe bends not around power blasts or destiny speeches, but around two broken people trying to harmonize. We're going to see the same emotional circuitry later with Bubblegum. Guarded softness, half smiles, whole centuries pressed into one duet and a few glances. But this moment with Ice King is the emotional X-ray. You see the fracture lines, and as you lie there, in the dark, you can replay your favorite Marceline song in your head like a private lullaby. Let the chords stretch out across your own inner multiverse. Let her voice drift at the center of time in your imagination, turning old pain into something gentler, something you can finally fall asleep to. The weight of power, soul-sucking, shape-shifting, and self-image. And here is the thing. Once you hear her songs as lullabies for a 1,000-year-old nervous system, you start to see her powers differently too. The fangs, the red eyes, the way she hangs upside down in some ruined tower like a bored bat at the edge of the universe. None of that is just vampire aesthetic. It's her emotional life, externalized. It's her self-image, weaponized. Let's start with the soul-sucking. In the show, it's framed as a combat mechanic. Marceline presses her mouth to a vampire's forehead, drinks the red out of their body, and adds their power to her own timeline. But emotionally, that power reads like this very familiar human fear. When she's hurting, when she's spiraling, she drains people. Their energy, their patience, their stability. She doesn't mean to. She just pulls. She pulls from Simon when he's already losing himself. She pulls from Bubblegum when their relationship becomes this endless argument about control and neglect. Think about that for a second. A girl who literally feeds on essence, terrified that her desire for connection will hollow out the people she loves. So she compensates by becoming fluid. Shape-shifting isn't just a gag where she turns into a wolf, or a bat, or a tiny red ball to hide in a bass guitar. It's identity as a magic trick. Monster, girl, demon, queen, friend, lover. She can inhabit all of them, exaggerate any of them, merge them into some new, unstable configuration. One day, she is the terrifying vampire queen towering over Ooo. The next, she is a small, hoodie-wearing musician mumbling into a microphone about how everything stays. The reality is that for Marceline, form is a wish to be seen a certain way, a wish to not be seen at all, which is where flight and invisibility come in. She can literally leave the room when an argument gets too intense. She can float away from conflict, drift through the ceiling, vanish into the night sky while everyone else is still mid-sentence. She is not trapped by gravity. She is not even trapped by line of sight. She is just trapped by her own avoidance, by this ancient pattern of surviving the mushroom war by getting out, by escaping by not watching the world end twice. When Simon starts slipping, she flies away. When bubblegum pushes too hard, she disappears. It's not subtle, it's just honest. Sometimes, though, she doesn't flee. She leans in. She becomes the monster on purpose. She plays up the glowing eyes, the jagged teeth, the I'm bad, I'm evil, I'm the Vampire Queen performance. Because if you're already scared of her, you can't reject her later. That is the shield. If her monstrousness pushes you away, then your leaving was never about her real self. It was about the mask. Safer to lose people to a persona than to your actual fragile existence. And across 1,000 years, we're going to watch her learn to steer that power differently. To use soul-sucking as mercy, not self-sabotage. To shapeshift into who she wants to be, not who her trauma tells her she is. To fly back instead of only flying away. To become, in that specifically Adventure Time way, a monster who finally believes she deserves to be loved. Because the next part of her story is this: what happens when immortality gives you enough time to try again? Marceline's many homes, caves, malls, and the places we heal. So when immortality finally gives her enough time to try again, Marceline does something incredibly ordinary and incredibly brave. She looks for somewhere to live. Let's start in the ruins, in the long echoing afterimage of the Mushroom War, where her first homes are more like hiding spots the universe forgot to clean up. An abandoned mall with half the roof missing, escalators frozen in place, mannequins staring with those blank, apocalypse-appropriate vibes. She curls up behind shattered display cases, under food court tables, in a drained fountain that still smells faintly like chlorine and old coins. It is not a house. It is a pause button on existence. You can almost hear the air humming with the wish that someone would come back for her. Here is the thing. A shelter is not the same as a home. Those half-collapsed buildings, the parking garages and hollowed-out offices, their survival mode made of concrete. No posters on the wall. No instruments out. If she has a photo of her mom or Simon, it's tucked away, hidden like contraband against more loss. She doesn't decorate because, in her timeline, everything decorated has already burned once. As time stretches, as she learns the power in flying instead of only running, her spaces change. We're going to follow her into caves now, into those dark, echoing layers carved into the side of Oo's new reality. These are dens built on purpose. There's a drum set wedged between stalagmites, axes and bass guitars hung like trophies. Old arcade cabinets dragged from that same dead mall, flickering with half-working power. She pins up faded gig posters, doodles on the rock, leaves mugs everywhere. It's spooky, yes, but also weirdly cozy, like a haunted rec room. Think about that for a second. The cave is both fortress and stage. She is the Vampire Queen. So of course there are skulls and jagged entrances and the whole dramatic silhouette against the moon. But there's also a beat-up couch, a box of old photos, Simon's chipped mug on a shelf she pretends not to care about. This is curated solitude. She's alone, but she's performing being alone. She's safe, but she's still rehearsing danger. Later, we see the floating houses, the mobile lairs drifting through the sky as if gravity is just another social obligation she's done with. A house that literally refuses to stay in one place is the perfect metaphor for someone who has lived through the end of the world and doesn't fully trust land anymore. Yet inside, more color, more light, instruments out in the open, a framed photo with bubblegum half smiling, half annoyed. These are shared spaces now. Friends drop by. Lovers argue and make up. The walls remember. Every home carries the past forward. The mall becomes the cave when the arcade cabinets move. The cave becomes the sky house when the posters come with her. The old photos survive every timeline shift, every relocation, like tiny anchors in the multiverse of her own memory. She can warp her body, her age, her role in Oo's power structure, but she keeps hauling the same small relics through time, as if they're the real immortals. And somewhere beyond all of this, in Obsidian, there is a home that finally feels less like a fortress and more like a nest, a place built to be lived in, not defended from. What does it mean when the Vampire Queen stops designing lairs and starts designing a life? We're about to walk through that doorway. Marceline and Hunson, round 2, boundaries with a demon dad, so when we step through that doorway, we don't just find throw pillows and a nice kitchen. We find a demon dad on the couch, casually opening a portal to the nitosphere like it's Tupperware, and a daughter who does not flinch anymore. Let's start with the contrast, because the timeline here matters. Early on, every Hudson visit is chaos. He eats souls at a business party. He steals Marceline's base. He barges into Ooo like a walking custody battle with cosmic powers. She yells, she sulks, she sings, "I'm just your problem," and you can feel how much of her existence is still defined by his absence and his appetite. But centuries stretch. The universe keeps turning. And in that specifically Adventure Time way, the joke slowly becomes the therapy session. By the time we see him later, especially in Obsidian, the rules have shifted. Hudson shows up in Ooo not as an unstoppable force, but as an embarrassing parent trying to be involved, while still occasionally threatening to devour someone's essence. Think about that for a second. The same mouth that once abandoned her in a ruined world is now awkwardly asking about her girlfriend. Here is the thing. Marceline doesn't stop him by overpowering him. She stops him by setting boundaries. Out loud. She tells him when he's not welcome, when he can't just yank her back to the nitosphere, when his idea of fatherly pride crosses into violating her reality. She is not evil. She is not even indifferent. She is just done letting his hunger dictate her timeline. You see it when he visits and tries to brag about her like she's a demonic trophy, and she just rolls her eyes, corrects him, redirects the conversation back to her music, to bubblegum, to the home she built at the edge of the multiverse of her own experiences. There is warmth there, exasperation, the very specific exhaustion of someone who has rehearsed this argument for 100 years and can finally deliver it calmly. And Hudson, for all his cosmic power, is terrible at parenting but not entirely hopeless. He brings gifts that don't quite fit. He beams when she performs. He stumbles through apologies that sound like legal disclaimers from the center of time. It's clumsy affection, but it is affection. The show lets him be a demon and a dad, a predator and a person who is genuinely proud that his daughter chose a different path. We're going to use this as a quiet model of immortality. Endless time does not freeze family dynamics. It just stretches them until every fracture line is visible. More years means more chances to wound each other, yes, but also more chances to renegotiate the contract, to say again and again, "I'm not your problem. I'm my own person." By the end, Marceline's identity is no longer a wish cast in his shadow. It's a life built from her own choices, her own band, her own communities scattered across Ooo. Hudson is still there, orbiting like a slightly hazardous moon, but he is not the center of her universe. And as you drift further into the dark, we'll follow that orbit outward, to the friendships, the loves, and the quieter eternities that finally let her rest. The long road back to bubblegum. From estrangement to endgame. So when Marceline's universe stops revolving around Hudson, there's this quiet, inevitable question waiting in the dark with you. If he isn't the center of her existence anymore, then who is? And the answer, drifting in and out of her timeline like a recurring dream, is Princess Bubblegum. Let's start with the strangest part. Their reconciliation doesn't begin with some cosmic confession. It begins with errands, with teaming up against a villain because there is literally no time to keep arguing. With Bubblegum calling Marceline for help in Skywitch, not because it's romantic, but because she trusts Marceline to navigate Marge's weird, cursed reality and to understand why Hambo matters. Think about that for a second. The candy monarch who tries to control every variable willingly walks into an emotional minefield for Marceline's favorite toy. Here is the thing. The show hides their healing in jokes. In What Was Missing, Marceline sings "I'm just your problem" and plays it off like she's just being mean, just being chaotic. But the lyrics are an apology and an accusation sharing the same microphone. She is not evil. She is not even indifferent. She is just terrified. Terrified that Bubblegum replaced her, that centuries of desire and hurt got archived like old lab notes. And Bubblegum, who usually weaponizes logic, just stands there looking like someone pulled the power cord on her entire emotional operating system. Over time, the rules of their dynamic change. Bubblegum stops trying to be the flawless ruler of a perfectly controlled candy kingdom and starts letting Marceline see her at 3 a.m., hair down, science projects half finished, anxiety leaking through the cracks. Marceline, who used to vanish instead of explaining herself, Start saying the quiet parts out loud. I don't like when you do that. I needed you and you weren't there. Simple sentences. But in that specifically Adventure Time way, they land like small, localized apocalypses. We're going to notice that the big turning points are rarely labeled as such. In varmints, they literally crawl through the dirt together, chasing pests and accidentally digging up old grievances. They bicker, they deflect, and then, in the dark, PB finally apologizes for pushing Marceline away when ruling the kingdom became her whole identity. It's half joke, half confession, the emotional equivalent of handing someone a bandage shaped like a punchline. And because this is an immortal love story, time stretches. Centuries of miscommunication compress into a handful of late-night talks, shared songs and crisis team-ups where they choose each other instead of the old, safer distance. Bubblegum loosens her grip on perfection. Marceline loosens her grip on resentment. Slowly, the timeline where they never speak again loses power, and the one where they keep trying gains mass, like a star forming at the center of time. By the time we reach the moment on the battlefield in Obsidian and that first explicit kiss in the main series, it doesn't feel like a twist. It feels like gravity. Not a new wish, but the fulfillment of one that's been humming under their reality for centuries. And as you drift deeper, we'll follow that gravity past the kiss itself, into the futures, the fractures, and the one song that almost tears them apart again. Pattern break, a future snapshot. Marceline and PB at peace. So, let's jump. Past the battlefield, past the first kiss, past the drama humming in the background of their universe like an off-key amp. We land in a quieter timeline where the volume's turned down and the light is soft, and Marceline and Bubblegum are just existing. They're in the Glass Kingdom in the Obsidian era, but not during the crisis you remember. After, the dragon has been dealt with, the kingdom rebuilt, the legends already fading into bedtime stories. It's late, and they're in a little workshop space that PB bullied into being up to code and Marceline bullied into having good acoustics. The table is a mess of wires, a half-dissected amplifier, and a chipped mug of something neon that probably violates several laws of physics and at least one health code. Marceline is tuning her axe bass, plucking the same lazy riff over and over, letting it ring into the corners. Bubblegum is elbow deep in the amp, soldering iron in hand, tongue pressed to the corner of her mouth, in that way she does when she's pretending not to be a perfectionist. There is no argument about priorities, no Cold War. Just, babe, your ground wire is a war crime, and PB snorting, your intonation is a war crime, without even looking up. Here is the thing. That casual, unbothered back and forth, that's the power immortality almost never gets credit for. Not the cosmic fireworks. The long, slow sanding down of sharp edges until they fit together without drawing blood. Marceline leans over, reaches past Bonnabelle for a screwdriver she absolutely does not need, and lets her hand rest on PB's back for a second longer than necessary. It's nothing. It's everything. It's the absence of flinch, the absence of that old, brittle tension that used to live in the air between them like static. Think about that for a second. A 1,000-year-old vampire whose entire existence has been defined by loss and leaving. And here she is, just quietly staying. Pattern interrupt. No prophecy, no song, no looming dragon. The big event tonight is whether the amp will hum less. That's it. That's the whole plot. And yet, in that specifically Adventure Time way, this tiny moment feels more cosmic than any battle. Because we're going to see that immortality is not just an endless timeline of new wounds. Given enough time and enough willingness to grow, it can also be the slow construction of a reality where your past doesn't get to drive anymore. It has a seat, it has a voice, but it doesn't hold the wheel. As you listen, you can let your mind drift into this workshop with them. You're on the couch in the corner, half asleep, hearing Marceline's low riff, looping like a mantra, while PB's tools click and buzz in the background. No one needs anything from you. The universe is not asking you to make a wish, fix a multiverse, or rewrite the rules of existence. You just breathe and exist in the same quiet room as two people who finally figured it out. Your thoughts can move the way Marceline's fingers move along the strings. Slower now, softer now, notes stretching out until they blur into a single continuous tone. Every exhale is PB turning one more screw, tightening one more connection, making the background hum of your day just a little quieter. And as that hum fades, we'll gently rewind, back to the earlier Obsidian era, before this piece was fully built. Back to the fight, the song, the fractures that still needed to be named. Because that's where Marceline's past stops chasing her, and finally starts becoming part of a coherent self. Distant lands. Obsidian as Marceline's emotional epilogue, so we rewind, but not all the way back to ruins and canned soup. We stop in glass. In the shimmering, fragile architecture of the Glass Kingdom, where every wall looks like it could crack if you raise your voice too loud. That's where Obsidian lives, in a city that is literally breakable, facing a monster born from Marceline's own amplified rage. Let's start with the premise because it sounds simple and then immediately isn't. Years after the main series, Marceline and Bubblegum are called back to the Glass Kingdom when a lava dragon, Molto Lavo, threatens to break free again. The twist is that this monster was sealed away once before by Marceline's music, by a furious breakup song she screamed at Bubblegum, and, accidentally, at everyone listening. That song becomes a spell, a seal, a scar on the universe and on her own reputation. Here is the thing. Obsidian is not just Marceline and PB go on another quest. It's a duet between timelines. We're going to watch a younger, spikier Marceline stomp through flashbacks in torn clothes and chipped bass, while the present-day Marceline moves slower, more grounded, almost surprised at how stable she has become. The special keeps cutting between then and now, like two tracks layered over each other, dissonant at first, and then gradually resolving. In those flashbacks, the show finally pulls the camera all the way back to her childhood trauma, without flinching. We see Elise, her human mother, sick and overworked in a post-Mushroom War reality that does not care about their survival. We see Marceline internalize that love mixed with fear, that desperate practicality of "you'll be safer without me," which is just abandonment with extra paperwork. Think about that for a second. The earliest lullabies in her life are warnings and apologies. Obsidian connects those wounds directly to her music. Young Marceline's songs are weapons and shields, all distorted power chords and weaponized sarcasm. Woke Up isn't just a banger. It's a thesis statement about being left, about deciding that if everyone goes away eventually, you might as well push first. She is not evil. She is not even indifferent. She is just bound by rules of survival older than the Candy Kingdom itself. Visually, the special keeps underlining this emotional shift. Past Marceline is framed in harsh reds and deep shadows, outlines jagged, movements sharp. Present Marceline stands in softer palettes, in domestic spaces with Bubblegum, in quiet corners of the multiverse where you can almost hear the air hum. Her bass evolves too, from a spiky battle axe silhouette to an instrument that looks worn in, lived with, an archive of songs rather than just a weapon. And the music changes. Earlier in her timeline, she performs pain like a spell, like a wish shouted at the center of time, hoping reality will blink first. In Obsidian, she finally processes it. She sings about Elise, about Simon, about Bubblegum, and the melodies hold space instead of detonating it. There is sadness there, acceptance, the power of someone who has stopped needing every song to double as armor. By the time Molto Lavo rises again, the real conflict is not can Marceline defeat this monster, it's can she face the version of herself that created it. And she does. Not by out-screaming her old anger, but by rewriting the song, by acknowledging that she was hurt and wrong, and still worthy of love. Obsidian becomes her emotional epilogue, proof that even after 1,000 years of existence, her timeline is not closed. She can still grow. She can still choose gentler rules for herself. She can still move toward a deeper peace that is not about forgetting the apocalypse, but about finally living beyond it. And once you see that, you can start tracing that same arc backward, through every song and every century, all the way to the little girl in the ruins, humming to keep the dark away. Facing the old wounds, Marceline and her mother in Obsidian. So when we trace that arc backward, it doesn't just stop with Simon in the ruins. It keeps going past the crown, past the vampires, all the way to a cramped car, a sick woman at the wheel, and a little girl in the backseat hugging a stuffed toy while the universe ends outside the windows. Let's start in Obsidian's flashbacks. Young Marceline and Elise are always moving. Cracked highways, evacuation zones, checkpoints with soldiers who look as scared as the civilians. Elise's hands shake on the steering wheel, but her voice is steady, rehearsed, determined. She keeps saying they're going somewhere safer, like safety is a place you can actually drive to, when the sky looks radioactive and reality itself is glitching. Here is the thing. The show never calls it the mushroom war in those scenes, but you feel it. You feel that this is the beginning of the end of their timeline. From Marceline's child-eye perspective, though, the emotional headline is simpler. Mom is scared. Mom is strict. Mom keeps saying no. No, you can't go outside. No, you can't keep that toy. No, you can't stay here. To a kid who doesn't understand the rules of apocalypse logistics, that reads as rejection. It reads as, "You're a problem I have to manage," not "you're the one wish I'm trying to keep alive." Think about that for a second. When your entire world is one person, every boundary feels like abandonment. Obsidian complicates that narrative in that specifically Adventure Time way, where the emotional twist is bigger than the plot twist. We see Elise coughing, hiding blood, slipping medication into her own mouth when Marceline isn't looking. We see the hospital wristband, the quiet panic when she realizes she may not have time, in the literal medical sense of time, to get her daughter somewhere safe. The "leave Marceline here" moment, which Marceline has carried for centuries as proof that she was unwanted, reframes itself as triage, as a dying human trying to deposit her half-demon kid in the least terrible branch of the multiverse. And once you know Elise was sick, everything retroactively shifts. The harsh words become fear. The distance becomes strategy. The goodbye becomes, horribly, the best plan she had with the power she had left. Marceline's immortal brain has been running a corrupted file for 1,000 years. Mom left me. Obsidian offers a patch. Mom was trying to save me from the war and from the reality of watching her die. Those are not the same story. When Marceline finally faces those memories head-on, we're going to see something rare for her. Softness without defensiveness, the anger that fueled her early music, the "I'm just your problem" edge, was a shield against this exact wound. Confronting Elise's truth doesn't erase the hurt, but it lets her stop aiming that hurt at herself and everyone who loves her. She can hold both realities at once, that she was abandoned and that the abandonment was an act of desperate love. And this is where immortality twists again. It isn't just outliving people, it's outliving your first draft of them. Having enough time to reinterpret their actions with more compassion, to re-edit the story of your own existence. Marceline can't change what happened in that car, or at that hospital, or in that last hallway, but she can change what it means. The question is, once you rewrite the origin of your pain, what happens to all the songs built on it? Monsters made of music, the dragon of Obsidian. And Obsidian answers that question with a dragon made of pure feedback. You go back to the Glass Kingdom, back to the site of an old performance, and the past is not subtle about it. It's a huge, black, cracked glass monster crawling out of a crater, shrieking like an amp pushed way past what reality was designed to handle. Its body looks like a waveform frozen mid-scream, all jagged peaks and valleys, and every blast it fires feels like the physical manifestation of a breakup song you never stopped replaying. Here is the thing. That dragon is literally running on Marceline's earlier, angrier music. The whole city is protected by a barrier tied to her performance from years ago, but what they bottled wasn't just power. It was unresolved rage, abandonment, the timeline where she walked away from bubblegum and decided that hurt was the only honest emotion left. So when the barrier cracks, what leaks out isn't just energy, it's the echo of a younger Marceline who believed destruction was the only way to be heard. And you can't punch that away. You can't just swing a sword at a 1,000-year-old feeling. Every time Marceline tries to fight the dragon like it's just another monster, it escalates, because the rules of this universe are very clear. If the song underneath doesn't change, the pattern doesn't change. She's been playing the same emotional riff for centuries. I'm just your problem, in different keys, different tempos, same thesis. I hurt, so I burn everything down. So Obsidian does something clever. It turns the boss battle into a rewrite session. The solution isn't brute force, it's composition. We're going to change the song. Marceline has to stand in the exact place where she once weaponized her voice and, instead of lashing out, tell the truth. Not the cool, detached punk version of the truth. The embarrassing one. The I miss you one. Think about that for a second. In a universe full of cosmic crowns and demons and wish magic, the scariest power move for her is vulnerability. That's where bubblegum matters. Not as the scientist who builds a gadget to neutralize the dragon, but as the person who refuses to rewrite Marceline's feelings for her. She doesn't jump in front and fix it. She stands beside her, steady, wearing that ridiculous Glass Kingdom armor, and basically says, "I'm here, sing what you actually mean." She is not a shield. She is not a cure. She is the audience of one Marceline has been avoiding for centuries. When Marceline finally plays the new song, the dragon doesn't explode. It softens. It melts back into the glass, into the architecture, into history itself. The monster made of music becomes just music, and that is the pivot. Immortality stops being about surviving the blast radius of your own anger and starts being about intentional creative living, about using endless time not to rehearse the same wound, but to write new verses. The question becomes, if you can live forever, what do you want your next song to do to the world? Immortality is healing, not just endurance. So when we ask, what do you want your next song to do to the world? We're really asking, what do you want it to do to you? Because here is the thing. For early Marceline, the song is just about getting through the day. Survive the ruins. Survive the hunger. Survive the silence between Simon leaving and anyone else arriving. Immortality back then is not poetic. It's just a very long, very echoey hallway she has to walk down alone. Let's start in the wreckage. Young Marceline with her can of soup, her battered teddy bear, and a guardian who is slowly dissolving under the crown's power. Every day is a new rule. Don't trust strangers, don't stay in one place, don't look too closely at what the world used to be. The timeline is just a blur of running and hiding. Healing is not on the menu. You can't process the apocalypse when it's still actively happening to you. Jump forward, and Obsidian-era Marceline is doing something radically different with the same endless timeline. She walks back into the Glass Kingdom, into literal ruins of an old relationship, and instead of just blasting the dragon again, she asks, "Why did I sing that way back then? Why did I weaponize my desire to be understood?" Think about that for a second. She is using time not as a wall to push memories behind, but as a resource she can mine for context, for accountability, for repair. Immortality doesn't hand her wisdom the way a wish granter hands out boons from the center of time. It hands her opportunities to repeat herself. And she does. She pushes bubblegum away, then pulls her close, then pushes again. She ghosts her dad, then screams at him. Then, centuries later, lets him sit in the audience while she plays. She is not enlightened. She is just persistent. The universe keeps not ending, so she keeps getting another draft. You can see the upgrades. Early on, her communication is a guitar slammed into an amp, all feedback and accusation. By Obsidian, she can say out loud that she was scared, that she thought she ruined Bonnabelle, that her anger was a shield. She sets boundaries with Hunson instead of just fleeing into the multiverse of empty houses. She lets Simon be Simon again without demanding he become the dad she lost. The relationships stabilize not because time heals all wounds, but because she finally uses time to look directly at them. Even her powers change meaning. The soul-sucking, the shape-shifting, the flight that once made her a terror on the post-war map become tools she can put down, or play with, or sing about without flinching. Existence stops being a battlefield and becomes a studio, a place where she can re-record the same emotional track until it sounds like honesty instead of pure defense. And in that specifically Adventure Time way, the show quietly suggests a hopeful version of immortality. Not a static curse, but a very long, very messy, ultimately meaningful journey towards saying, "I know who I am, and I'm staying." But if endless time can be used to heal, what happens when the person who first broke you finally comes back into focus? Cosmic versus intimate. Marceline among gods, demons, and candy people. So when the person who first broke you steps back into frame, the camera of the universe quietly pulls out. Suddenly, Marceline isn't just a girl with a base and a grudge. She's standing in a cosmos full of gods, demons, and abstract forces that can rewrite reality like you or I might rewrite a text. Let's start with the scale of the world she lives in. Out there, you have Golb, this anti-reality event that unravels existence just by showing up. You have the elemental powers reshaping Ooo into fire, slime, candy, and ice, like the universe is running a very dramatic mood ring. You have the Nightosphere, a dimension of contracts and torment where her dad is basically middle management of damnation. Marceline brushes against all of this. She hangs out with Princess Bubblegum, while cosmic catastrophes loom in the background. She watches Golb descend. She literally walks into the Nightosphere to yell at her father about eating her fries. Think about that for a second. Here is the thing. She is not a god. She is not a pure cosmic principle. She is a person who leaves laundry on the floor, who decorates a cave with hand-drawn posters, who writes songs about how much it hurt when someone forgot her. She has a messy bedroom, a chipped bass guitar made from an old battle axe, and 1,000 years of baggage that will not fit neatly into any prophecy. Her half-demon heritage and vampire powers put her in this strange in-between. She can float through walls, shapeshift into a bat monster, turn invisible, drain the red out of anything. She can survive apocalypses, live across timeline after timeline of political drama in Ooo, and still also just sit on a couch and watch movies. We're going to see her walk from a cozy fort made of blankets straight into a portal to the Nightosphere, like commuting between your apartment and a cosmic tax office. That makes her a bridge character. She can talk to Hunson Abadir in his realm of screaming souls, then come home and argue with Bubblegum about band practice. She can stand in the blast radius of Golb-level events and still be emotionally preoccupied with one very specific vampire ex, or one very old human friend losing his mind over time. The universe expands into multiverse-scale danger, and Marceline's focus narrows onto who is in the room with her. And in that specifically Adventure Time way, the show keeps cutting from cosmic to intimate. The world ends. A child and a man share canned soup in a ruined city. Elemental chaos erupts. Marceline sings, "Everything stays in a quiet garden," explaining how reality changes and also doesn't. Gold appears. What you remember is her holding Simon's hand. That is the paradox at the heart of her story. The universe of Adventure Time is full of center-of-time entities, wish mechanics, and metaphysical rules. But Marceline's most powerful scenes are small. A song in a treehouse, a conversation on a rooftop, a whispered apology in a dim, haunted room. When you think about your own life, in your own much less magical timeline, isn't that true for you too? You live in a cosmos of black holes and expanding galaxies, but what actually hurts or heals you is a sentence someone said in a kitchen at midnight. Marceline anchors that truth inside a world of demons and candy people. And as we move forward into the moment when her father really steps back into focus, that contrast between cosmic scale and human scale feeling is going to matter more than ever. The ethics of forever. How Marceline chooses to use her time, so when Hunson steps back into frame, when the literal Lord of the Nightosphere walks into this small emotional kitchen you've been sitting in with Marceline, you hit a different question. Not just who hurt her, but if you knew you'd live for 1,000 years, how responsible would you feel for the world around you? And how tempted would you be to just check out and watch it all from the sidelines? Think about that for a second. A universe of constant loss, and you're the one who doesn't get to leave. Here is the thing. Marceline tries checking out. Early on, after the Mushroom War, most of her power is defensive, almost minimalistic. Flight to get away, shape-shifting to hide, soul-sucking as a last resort weapon to keep herself from being erased in a reality already erased once. She drifts through ruined cities and then through early Ooo like a ghost that refuses to admit it's haunting anything. You see flashes of isolated heroism, yes, but they're tactical, not ideological. She saves a kid here, scares off a monster there, then vanishes before anyone can ask her what she wants. We're going to follow that slowly widening circle, because as time keeps unspooling, as centuries accumulate like dust on an old amp, Marceline's ethics stop being just about survival and start being about the people who keep stubbornly orbiting her. Bubblegum, who builds a kingdom out of candy and anxiety, Finn and Jake, who treat her like a person instead of a legend. Even Simon, drifting back into her life as a broken echo of the protector he once was. She begins using her reputation like a shield, letting the myth of the Vampire Queen do some of the work. Predators hear her name and decide this particular timeline is not worth the hassle. And that's not accidental. Her whole moral compass is forged between predators and protectors. On one side, vampires, demons, her father, beings who look at the multiverse and see a buffet. On the other, Simon, who gave up his own mind to keep one little girl alive in a dead world. Neither extreme really works. Eternal consumption burns everything. Eternal self-sacrifice erases the self. Marceline stands in the middle, refusing to be a cosmic leech, but also refusing to martyr herself for every passing disaster. She will defend kingdoms, but she will also walk away from thrones. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the show makes her immortality ethical, without making her ethicality perfect. She messes up, she bails on people, she lashes out. And then, crucially, she comes back. Again and again, across centuries, she chooses to care, knowing that everyone she loves is on a shorter clock than she is. That is her real power. Not flight, not invisibility, but the decision to remain emotionally present in a universe that keeps trying to convince her that detachment would hurt less. And just when it seems like she's finally found a sustainable balance, the universe hands her the hardest test of that choice. A father who embodies the worst version of eternity, walking back into her life with contracts, appetites, and a claim on her soul. Pattern break. Imagining Marceline's future centuries. So let's do something strange with time for a moment. Instead of staying with Marceline at this painful reunion, pull the camera way forward until the contracts are dust, the arguments are hazy, and Ooo itself has shifted into some new configuration of ruins and little kingdoms and half-remembered legends. She's still there, of course she is. Older only in experience, still floating above it all with a bass in her hands, playing to a universe that keeps remixing itself. Let's start with a simple image. Centuries from now, the Candy Kingdom you know has melted and reformed a dozen times, like someone kept hitting randomize on a very polite apocalypse generator. Marceline drifts through a neon swamp where bubblegum vines grow wild, playing a slow, echoing version of Everything Stays, to a campfire of kids who think the Mushroom War is a fairy tale. They don't know that the quiet vampire by the fire once walked those glassed-over craters as a human child. She doesn't correct them. She just plays. She is a living archive, pretending to be background music. Think about that for a second. Here is the thing about her immortality. It doesn't just mean she survives, it means she accumulates. New friends appear in each timeline like strange little comets. A nervous wizard who only knows history through glitchy holograms. A sentient toaster who writes poetry about crumbs. A tiny kingdom built inside the ribcage of some long-dead colossus. They rise, they fall. They pass through her orbit, and because Marceline remembers the old world, and the world after that, and the one after that, each new song she writes is layered like geological strata, mushroom war ash, under Vampire Queen bravado and a quiet domestic happiness, and bubblegum. Because of course, in that specifically Adventure Time way, their story doesn't just freeze at one perfect ending. It stretches, it breathes. There are centuries where they live together in some crystalline lab house, arguing about experimental candy ethics and whose turn it is to feed the weird pet they accidentally created by spilling mutagen on a pillow. There are decades where they drift apart, not from hatred, but from the gravitational pull of different responsibilities. Empires need building. Empires need dismantling. But the timeline keeps looping them back. A concert in a half-sunken amphitheater. A science conference on a floating rock. A late-night knock on a door that technically no longer exists. They always have that shared archive to return to. And we're going to push the camera even farther now, until the borders of Ooo blur, and the multiverse feels thin, like parchment, held up to a bright light. Marceline has something she didn't have as a child, wandering the ruins with Simon, or as a newly crowned vampire queen, testing the limits of her power. She has tools. She has language for her fear, friends who understand her history, a partner who has seen her at her worst and stayed. She doesn't just endure existence anymore, she participates in it, on purpose. That is its own quiet cosmic wish. Pattern interrupt for your brain. This is not actually about her. Not only because your life is shorter, yes, and the center of time is not in your bedroom, and you probably do not have a demon dad with a pocket dimension, but you also live through rising and falling kingdoms, jobs, relationships, cities, identities. You also watch realities end and begin again. You can't choose immortality. You can choose, again and again, how to respond when the universe changes the rules on you. Like Marceline, you get to decide whether you close off or pick up your metaphorical bass and write a new verse. And as you drift towards sleep, you're already practicing that choice, letting one version of today end so another can begin. Why Marceline hurts so much, and why we love her for it. And here is the thing, when you wake up tomorrow, you will still be you, with your same memories, your same bruises, your same quiet victories. Marceline doesn't get to respawn either. She just has 1,000 more yesterdays to carry around. Let's start with the wounds she never chose. A human mother who dies too soon, leaving a half-demon kid in a universe that has just ended. Simon, the one adult who stayed, slowly dissolving under the crown until the man who held her hand in ruined parking lots becomes a stranger who forgets her name. Centuries of wandering through the afterimage of the Mushroom War, watching the timeline rebuild itself, without ever really asking if she's okay. A father who literally eats souls for a living, and also eats her fries, which is funny until you realize it's the same pattern. Hunts and takes, then acts confused when she's hurt. And then, in that specifically Adventure Time way, the heartbreak with bubblegum, where 1,000 tiny miscommunications calcify into a breakup song, performed in front of everyone. On screen it's demons, vampires, crowns, princesses, but you recognize it. Divorce that rips your household in half, dementia that turns someone you love into a moving absence, parents who are physically present and emotionally in another dimension, messy breakups where nobody is the villain but everybody is bleeding, that feeling of being the only one in the room who remembers how bad it really was. Think about that for a second. The show just translates ordinary human pain into cosmic metaphors, and then lets Marceline carry the translation. We're going to look at her coping because it's uncomfortably familiar. She uses music the way a lot of people use late-night scrolling or journals or half-finished notes on their phone, as a containment field for emotions that feel too loud to hold in raw form. She jokes first, stabs second, apologizes maybe. She pretends she doesn't care who stays, so it won't hurt as much when they leave. She isolates in weird little forts and caves, decorating them like someone who has moved apartments 100 times but never fully unpacked. She performs toughness like armor. She is not okay. She is not even pretending to be okay very well. She is just surviving with style, and somehow, her most powerful move is not shape-shifting or soul-sucking. It's vulnerability. She keeps calling Simon, Simon, when everyone else calls him Ice King. She keeps writing songs about bubblegum instead of pretending it never mattered. She keeps visiting her terrible dad. She keeps making friends with mortals who will absolutely die before she does. That is not rational power. That is choosing connection in a universe that has already proven it can't promise you permanence. Listening to Marceline's story as you fall asleep becomes its own quiet wish, not for a different past, but for the courage to sit next to your own hurt without turning to stone. Healing in her world takes centuries. In yours, it might take years, or just the length of this night. Either way, it is slow. It is uneven, and it is still worth it. Because the next question is, what do you actually do with that hurt once you've admitted it's there? The philosophy of everything stays, change, memory, and acceptance. Here is the thing. Once you've admitted the hurt is there, Adventure Time does something strange. It doesn't rush to fix it. It hands you a lullaby. Let's go in the garden, you'll find something waiting. Marceline sings to a little girl who is also herself, who is also you, in a universe that used to be Earth and is now Ooo. Let's start with the words. Everything stays, right where you left it. Everything stays, but it still changes. That is a paradox, wrapped in a melody. The world has been annihilated by the Mushroom War. The continents are warped, Magic leaks into reality like radiation, and yet the show calmly tells you, everything stays. Not the buildings, not the bodies, the patterns, the echoes in the timeline. Think about that for a second. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the song is doing cosmic philosophy with the gentlest possible voice. Marceline has watched playgrounds become battlefields and then forests. She's seen the human city where she shared canned soup with Simon erode into ruins, then into a mossy hill where some kid in Ooo might someday sit and write their own song. The matter rearranges. The meaning lingers. The universe recycles its memories. We're going to go on a little adventure. The song says, we'll stay the same, but we'll change. That is immortality from the inside. Marceline's face shifts from human to demon to vampire queen. Her powers stack, soul-sucking, shape-shifting, invisibility. Each one taken from a monster she had to end. She changes weapon, outfit, haircut, genre, but the core threads keep looping. Love for Simon, fear of abandonment, the desire to be known, the power of music as the only language big enough for 1,000 years of existence. The show could have made that terrifying. Instead, it makes it sleepy. Everything Stays is a lullaby about entropy, about how your favorite tree grows, breaks, falls, rots, and feeds a new tree in the same patch of dirt, about how a relationship ends, but the way you learned to be gentle doesn't vanish, it just shows up in the next person you care about. You lose a version of yourself, but you keep the rhythm of their footsteps somewhere in your nervous system. And the fact that this song comes from someone who doesn't age, that's the quiet joke and the quiet tragedy. Marceline, who cannot escape time, is the one telling you it's okay that you will. She treats the end of worlds like the end of seasons, not dismissively, tenderly, as if every goodbye is just another verse. So as you drift off, you can hold this idea very lightly. Days, relationships, versions of you will pass, but something of them always stays, right where you left it, waiting to be found in a different form. Because the real question isn't whether everything changes, it's what you choose to do with what remains when it does. And that's exactly where Marceline's story is about to turn. Marceline as the heart of Adventure Time's grown-up themes. And here is the thing. When Marceline's story turns, the whole emotional gravity of Adventure Time quietly tilts with it. You think you're just following a cool vampire who plays bass and drinks the color red. But somewhere along the timeline, you realize you've been watching the show use her as its main laboratory for growing up, forgiving, and carrying the past without letting it devour your entire existence. Let's start with how her arc answers that question the show keeps whispering at you. How do you grow up when time won't stop throwing new versions of you at yourself? Finn grows up in years. Bubblegum grows up in centuries of nation building. Marceline grows up in millennia of unresolved feelings. Every fight with her dad, every abandoned mall, every burned photograph just stays. She doesn't get to shed old selves. She has to negotiate with them, like a one-woman multiverse of contradictory desires. Compared to Finn, who is all forward momentum and heroic narrative, Marceline is the long echo. He loses an arm. She loses entire eras. He learns to let go of a crush. She has to make peace with a 1,000-year on-and-off relationship with Bubblegum that spans war, pettiness, codependency, and finally, real intimacy. Think about that for a second. Finn's heartbreak is your first breakup. Marceline and Bubblegum are what happens when you keep running into the same person at different points in your life, in different emotional costumes, and you have to decide whether to rewrite the ending. And Bubblegum? She externalizes adulthood as power, kingdoms, rules, moral compromises. Marceline internalizes it as mood, depression, anger, avoidance. The way a song like I'm Just Your Problem can be both a tantrum and a confession. Episodes that orbit her, I Remember You, Everything Stays, Obsidian, drag the show into deeper emotional territory. Grief isn't a plot point there. It's the atmosphere. Mental illness isn't a metaphor. It's Simon humming nonsense in a ruined house while a little girl clings to the last version of him that still remembers canned soup. We're going to see intergenerational trauma play out not as exposition, but as melodies. A demon father who literally feeds on souls, and a human mother who quietly walks away, are not subtle images. Yet the show keeps it gentle, in that specifically Adventure Time way, wrapping abandonment and apocalypse in lullabies and bedroom arguments. It lets a children's cartoon sit with panic, numbness, and recovery, without ever announcing, "This is about trauma." It just is. And it is quietly radical that the emotional center of all this is a queer immortal woman who is not tidy, not consistently noble, not safely tragic. She is messy, petulant, wildly powerful, and often wrong. She hoards old t-shirts and resentments with the same intensity. She ghosts people for decades. She also apologizes, changes, and lets herself be loved again. For a show on a kid's network to say, "This, right here, is the heart of our universe," that's brave. Because once you understand Marceline's immortal life, the way every era leaves a chord in her, Adventure Time's whole structure snaps into focus. The show's jokes, its cosmic weirdness, its timelines and wish magic all orbit this simple, painful, hopeful question. What do you do with all the versions of yourself that time refuses to erase? And as we move into the next part of her story, we'll see how becoming the Vampire Queen is not a detour from that question, but the sharpest expression of it yet. Soft landing, walking back through her 1,000 years' time's whole structure snaps into focus, and then, very gently, we zoom back out. The noise fades. The big cosmic questions about identity and power dim to a low, warm glow. We're going to walk back through her 1,000 years now, slowly, like you're retracing your steps through a dream you almost remember. Let's start in the ruins. Little Marceline, boots too big, hair in her face holding a battered teddy bear in a world that just ended. The Mushroom War has already rewritten reality, but for her it's just cold pavement and empty buildings, and the quiet, terrifying wish that her mum will come back. Elise is a memory and a wound at the same time. Simon appears like a glitch in the timeline, this awkward man with canned soup and a crown that whispers. He is not a hero. He is not even stable. He is just there, wrapping his scarf around a scared child, while his own mind erodes at the center of time inside his skull. Here is the thing, that Marceline never leaves. The girl in the ruins is still there when she's hunting vampires centuries later. You can see her in the way she charges the Fool, the Empress, the Hierophant, the Moon, the King. No armor, just stubbornness and a base she hasn't built yet. Each victory adds a new power to her existence, but it doesn't make her less herself. Flight, invisibility, shape-shifting, soul-sucking. They're just louder metaphors for what she already was, a kid who had to become a monster to keep other monsters away. And then the title shifts, Vampire Queen. It sounds grand, cosmic, theatrical. In practice, it's Marceline on rooftops, on battlefields, in empty deserts of the multiverse, pretending the crown fits. Think about that for a second. A queen who mostly wants to be left alone to play music. The continuity is almost funny. Little girl in the ruins, vampire hunter, vampire queen, wandering musician, reluctant friend, healed partner in obsidian. It's all the same beat, just remixed over time. Every relationship is a verse she keeps rewriting. Elise teaches her that love can end and still matter. Simon shows her that protection can be both salvation and abandonment. Hudson is the living rule that power without empathy is just hunger. Bubblegum becomes the experiment in mutual desire, the one that breaks, pauses, and then impossibly stabilizes. Finn and Jake wander in like chaotic side quests and leave behind something gentler, the knowledge that she can be known without being decoded. None of those people vanish from her timeline. They turn into threads, not weights, not chains. Threads in a tapestry she keeps adding to in real time, every time she turns a feeling into a song. I'm just your problem. Everything stays. The Obsidian duet. These are not separate arcs. They're the same stubborn heart trying again under different skies. And as we drift towards sleep, her 1,000 years shrink down to nights like this. 1. Quiet spaces between loud events. A girl, a queen, a musician, lying awake somewhere in Ooo, watching the ceiling and replaying the day. Immortality, in that specifically Adventure Time way, is not endless battle. It's endless chances to sit with yourself after the battle ends. Tomorrow, the universe will get loud again. But for now, Marceline's whole existence narrows to a soft, simple wish: to rest, to remember, and to wake up still herself. What Marceline teaches us about being mortal. And here is the thing. When you zoom out from that one quiet night on Marceline's ceiling and look across her whole timeline, it starts to look uncomfortably familiar. Not because you are secretly a 1,000-year-old half-demon vampire queen, probably, but because her problems are just our problems, with the volume turned up and the duration stretched across a cosmic calendar. She forgets details. She misremembers conversations with Simon. Faces blur. Whole years collapse into a single song. That's not an immortal glitch. That's just how memory works when existence keeps moving. Think about that for a second. You and Marceline are playing the same game with the same unreliable hardware. She just has more save files to manage. We're going to follow her from canned soup in a ruined parking lot with Simon to bickering band practice with bubblegum, to that bittersweet campfire where she finally sings about everything stays. Different eras, same pattern. Loss, then healing. Anger, then apology. Silence, then music. If it takes Marceline centuries to circle back and say, "I was wrong," what does that say about the pressure you put on yourself to fix everything by next week? Let's start with this gentle rule. If even an immortal needs time, support, and art to heal, you are allowed to be unfinished. Marceline has literal demon power, vampire power, the power to outweigh almost any disaster in the multiverse. And she still needs a base, a notebook, and one person who will actually listen. She does not brute force her way through grief. She writes it, sings it, messes it up live, and tries again. You, lying there, are not weaker because you cannot will your brain into perfect peace on command. You are just playing by the same rules she is. Notice what actually matters in her 1,000-year highlight reel. It's not the big boss fights with the 5 main vampires, even though those rewrite reality and give her new powers. The moments that define her are small and weirdly domestic. Simon putting a toy in her backpack before he forgets her name, bubblegum staying through an awkward argument instead of teleporting away. A quiet night in the Glass Kingdom, 2 immortals on a couch, watching bad TV at the center of time. Those are the real wishes that get granted. Not the dramatic ones, but the ordinary ones. Stay, listen, don't leave yet. There is guilt in her story. Regret. Whole centuries she would probably skip if she could fast forward the universe. And still, eventually, she forgives herself. Not all at once, in pieces. A song here, a conversation there, an apology muttered under her breath while tuning her bass. If Marceline can look back at a millennium of mistakes and say, "I'm still allowed to be loved," then maybe you can look back at the last few years, or just today, and loosen your grip on your own throat a little, because ultimately, Marceline's arc is one long, strange bedtime story about choosing love even when it hurts. Loving a father who fails you. Loving a friend who forgets you. Loving a girlfriend you keep pushing away and pulling back. Love does not cancel the pain. It coexists with it, stubborn and bright. And as you drift towards sleep, you're listening to the same lesson she spent 1,000 years learning. You will lose things. You will change. But you can keep choosing to be here, in this moment, in this body, in this small corner of the universe. And that choice is its own quiet kind of power. And in the next part of this story, we'll slow down even more and walk through some of those moments one by one, like flipping through an old Immortal photo album until the edges of her life and yours start to blur. If you're still awake, a quiet thank you and next steps. So as we flip open this Immortal photo album, here is the thing. Some of you are already gone. Not gone, just drifted, slipped sideways out of waking reality and into that private little multiverse behind your eyelids. That was always part of the wish of this video, even if you never said it out loud. If that's you, if you're already asleep, you won't hear this, and that's perfect. Your timeline has already branched. You're off in some dream universe where Marceline's bass sounds like ocean waves, and the mushroom war is just distant thunder. The rules of this space are gentle. You don't have to finish, you don't have to remember, you don't have to do anything at all. But if you're still here with us, still hovering in that soft in-between place, let's start with a quiet, low-stakes ask. No pressure, no cosmic contract. Just, If this helped you feel a little calmer inside your own existence, you can tap like or subscribe or both, and then forget about it. Think about that for a second. A tiny motion of your hand, and you help carve out one more small, cozy corner of the internet dedicated to slow, thoughtful lore about vampires, time, and people who live too long. We're going to keep building this space, this ongoing playlist of lore to fall asleep to, where the universe ends, reforms, and sings about it, and you just get to lie there and listen. Marceline's childhood in the ruins, Simon sharing canned soup with her in a dead city, Bubblegum and Marceline arguing, and then harmonizing 1,000 years later. All of that can live here as background starlight while you drift. If you remember when you wake up, you might wander back to the comments and leave a little marker on the timeline. Your favorite Marceline moment, your favorite song, maybe Everything Stays, with its quiet acceptance that time moves but the pattern echoes. Maybe I'm Just Your Problem, with that raw, messy desire to be seen in the middle of a candy-bright universe. Or maybe some tiny interaction only you care about. That's you, adding one more thread to her tapestry. And to make the rest of your night easier, you can queue up another episode or playlist now. Before your eyes get heavy, line up more lore, more cosmic wishmakers at the center of time, more ruined Earths, more characters trying to understand their own power without breaking reality. Then you don't have to reach for your device again. The stories will just keep flowing past while you drift along the surface of them. Thank you for walking through 1,000 years with Marceline tonight. Through wars and songs, through abandonment and healing, through all the strange ways immortality bends a person's heart. Stay right where you are, and in the next part, we'll open that photo album to the very first page. And the first picture is not what you think it is. Drifting off with the Vampire Queen. Final reflection, flowing past while you drift along the surface of them. So as we close the album for tonight, picture her not as a fixed image, but as a moving presence somewhere in Ooo right now. Maybe she's on some crooked Candy Kingdom rooftop, boots dangling over the edge, bass in her lap, quietly testing out a new song that will take her another 50 years to finish. Maybe she's in that little house with the yellow curtains, light off, window cracked, curled up in bed with bubblegum, arguing in whispers about which constellation looks the most like a burrito. Or maybe she's alone for a minute, floating above a black lake, just watching the stars, the same stars she's seen 1,000 times, across 1,000 versions of the same sky. Think about that for a second. In a universe that's been exploded, irradiated, and rearranged into candy people, the constellations are still basically doing their job. Quiet continuity in a chaotic reality. That's Marceline too. She changes her hair, her sound, her armor, but she is still there. Here is the thing. Her story is still going. It does not end because we reach the edge of an episode, or the bottom of a timeline chart, or the end of a sleepy YouTube video. It keeps unspooling in the background of the multiverse, like a cassette tape you left running in another room. And it's okay to set it down for tonight. We're going to leave her mid-note, mid-joke, mid-healing, and that is not a betrayal. That is just you respecting your own energy bar. Sleep is your tiny personal mushroom war reset. Not dramatic, not apocalyptic, just your brain quietly nuking the day and regrowing something softer in its place. Marceline retreats all the time. Into caves, into songs, into decades where she barely talks to anyone. Then she comes back. Stronger, or at least stranger, with new music about what it felt like. You do the same thing on a 24-hour scale. You disappear into the dark for a while. You process the wishes you made today, the fears, the weird background hum of existence. Then you respawn in the morning with one more day of power. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the universe is ridiculous and terrifying and kind of cozy all at once. Rules break. Time loops. The center of time is apparently a bedroom. But there is always music. There are always memories, even the painful ones that eventually turn into songs you can live with. And there are always new chances, however small, to be a little kinder to yourself than you were yesterday. So let this be the quiet part. No more battles, no more vampires, no more diagrams of her age across the centuries. Just you, breathing. Let your thoughts blur at the edges, like watercolor left in the rain. Marceline's 1,000-year story will still be there in the morning, waiting exactly where you left it. For now, good night. Drift. We'll pick it up again next time. Silence after the song. A gentle fade out. For now, good night. Drift. We'll pick it up again next time. But before we really let go, just stay here for a moment longer, in the quiet after the story. No more timelines, no more diagrams on the wall of the universe, no more tracking every year of her existence like a math problem. Just the echo of an immortal girl's song, stretching out across time until it's more atmosphere than narrative. Here is the thing. You do not have to hold all of it. Not the exact order of battles, not the rules of every wish that shaped her reality, not the precise age she was when a ruined city turned into a forest around her. Think about that for a second. The forest doesn't remember every brick it swallowed. It just grows. So we're going to let your thoughts grow softer in the same way. Imagine those shattered skyscrapers you saw earlier in your mind, the ones from the Mushroom War, slowly being wrapped in moss and ivy, windows filling with roots instead of glass, the hard edges of the old world rounded off by time and rain and patience. No explosions now, just leaves, just wind. You can feel yourself do the same. Breathe in, very slowly. Hold it for a gentle heartbeat, then breathe out a little longer than you took in. Again, in, like the night air over the fields of Ooo. Out, like a quiet sigh from the tree fort when everyone is finally asleep. Somewhere in that tree fort, there is a couch that has seen more of Marceline's existence than most civilizations. There is a mug left on a table. There is a base leaning against the wall. No one is arguing. No one is saving the multiverse. The only power in the room is the tiny, ordinary power of rest. If you listen, you might imagine her voice, very far away now, humming a few notes you half recognize. Not a full song, just fragments. A line from Everything Stays drifting through your mind, like dust in a projector beam. A memory of I'm just your problem, without the pain attached. The emotional sharpness is gone. The lullaby remains. You don't need to remember who left whom, who vanished into what timeline, who made which wish at the center of time. You don't need to track every rule of her immortality or every desire that drove her across 1,000 years. The feeling is enough. The shape of her life, not the exact coordinates. So let's start ending, very slowly. Imagine the ruined highways outside the city, cracked open and filled with birch trees, the moonlight turning broken asphalt into a silver river. Imagine Marceline flying low over it once, then never needing to again. Imagine that image fading, like the last frame of an old tape. Now, longer pauses, more silence between the thoughts. The tree fort light clicks off. The forest hum drops to a whisper. The universe does not end, it just turns the volume down. If another detail of her story floats up, that's fine. Let it pass. Let it dissolve. You have done enough listening for one night. Marceline's immortal life will keep going, somewhere off-screen, held by time so you don't have to hold it. For now, just breathe and fall and forget on purpose. Good night.